All right, everyone, welcome to the Tuesday edition. It is the Tuesday edition of Reality Check, just another Tuesday here on the home of Black Talk Media. It's none other than WURD. We are live on 96.1 FM, 900 AM. Also, wordradio.com for the live stream, Word TV, and Word app, taking Word app wherever you go. Hopefully, you are keeping stationary, you are staying at home or staying in place as much as possible, particularly as there are tropical storm warnings in effect for Philadelphia and surrounding areas. Pretty much tropical storm warnings all along the eastern seaboard, particularly for the mid-Atlantic and particularly for places in southeastern PA. So people stay inside if you can, because you're already getting storm force winds or equivalent tropical storm force winds. We will have peak winds at 30 to 45 miles per hour with gusts up to 60 miles per hour. That's in southeastern PA, Philly. That's happening pretty much all along the eastern seaboard right now, as the eastern seaboard is dealing with the effects of Hurricane Isaias. And so we're just watching that all very closely. Everyone, there's even tornadoes popping up in certain parts of the Northeast. So everyone stay sheltered as best you can. I know that there was earlier on this morning, Philadelphia Office of Emergency Management had issued a tornado warning that was in effect until 8 a.m. today. So it doesn't appear that that tornado warning is still up. I'm not sure if it was lifted yet either, but, just essentially get in, get down, cover up, take shelter ASAP in a basement or interior room with few or no windows. If you do happen to get a tornado alert or a tornado warning, your cell phone carriers may also be sending out those alerts as well when they become immediate or when they become urgent. So just keep an eye open, keep your eye on your text alerts and looking out for texts from the National Weather Service or from your jurisdiction's emergency management office. That's all going to be important during a time like this or during a day like this. So just everyone just stay sheltered and continue to listen in to programs like Reality Check here on WURD. I'm Charles Ellison, by the way. I'm your host, executive producer of Reality Check. You can reach me on Twitter, twitter.com @EllisonReport, #RealityCheck, @EllisonReport, #RealityCheck. Definitely feel free to touch base with us there. And you can also do so through our Facebook live stream, our Word TV live stream on Facebook Live, and that is at facebook.com/4word and youtube.com/onWURD as well. Phone lines are open at the moment until we bring on our next guest. You might have questions for him, actually. Leon McDougall. Dr. Leon McDougall is the president of the National Medical Association. That is the National Organization of Black Doctors. So he was anticipated or expected today at the top of this 10 o'clock hour. He was scheduled for it. So let's see if he makes it. But phone lines are open. 215-634-8065. Toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065. Toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. I'm looking at some very high gust winds outside my window right now, in fact. So yeah, it's looking really active outside. So everyone just please sit tight as best you can and be careful and check up on one another. But, instead of going door to door, just do that by phone or other means. So here during our Tuesday edition of Reality Check, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. Oh, we do have Leon McDougall, who is current president of the National Medical Association. Go to nmanet.org for more information on the National Medical Association. That is the national organization representing Black doctors in the United States. nmanet.org. Also, Dr. McDougall is the Diversity and Inclusion or Chief Diversity Officer at the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center. But he is the 121st president of the National Medical Association as well. He joins us by phone. Dr. McDougall, how are you doing, sir?
Doing well, Mr. Charles Ellison. So I was on time. I was asked to call in at 10:05, and I called in at 10:05.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, no, we appreciate that. Thanks so much for making it. Hey, listen, this first time we've checked in. It's been a while since we last spoke to you, but this is the first time we checked in since this major Black Lives Matter moment ensued or happened. And what's the National Medical Association been up to these days? How has that sort of changed what your pandemic era strategy was? Because the last time we were talking, the last few times we spoke, we were talking about what you all are doing and how you are all being activated and responding to pandemic. So what's changed since then?
So Black lives have always mattered for the
Mm,
National Medical Association. So that's our foundation. So
mm-hmm.
in regards to the communities that we serve, that remains constant. Uh,
Right.
with that being said, there have been additional stressors placed on the community. And as I stated last evening during my installation ceremony as a family physician serving a predominantly African American population in Columbus, Ohio,
Mm,
when someone is having symptoms of chest pain with exertion that may or may not be caused by a blockage of a heart artery, I order a cardiac stress test. And what's going on now in the coronavirus pandemic, the killing of George Floyd, that has been a community stress test for African Americans and really points to the need for us to redouble our efforts and have more of a community and social commitment to
mm-hmm.
Black and brown communities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Another thing too, how do you merge that public health, physical health component with the mental health component? I was having a conversation earlier on today. I was on the air before I hopped on this show with our sister folks up in Chicago on WVON, and we were talking about the mental state of Black people. We were more specifically talking about Black men, but the mental state of Black people, why mental health is so important at a time like this. And so, what are some efforts that you're involved in right now? What sorts of conversations are you all having about being more intentional about Black mental health during a time like this, especially? I mean, we've always needed a Black mental health checkup. We've always needed that because we go through daily trauma. But I've noticed that conversation has become a lot more urgent in recent weeks and recent months.
So another very good question, Mr. Ellison, and it speaks to the value of partnership and collaboration. It also speaks to the fact that mental health and physical health are one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so with our efforts leaning on and working with our psychiatrists within our National Medical Association, our psychologists with the Association of Black Psychologists, looking at methods such as mindfulness
Mm-hmm.
and helping to bring down stress levels. For example, I really want to commend persons like Kevin Love. I'm here in Ohio, about an hour and a half from Cleveland. He's a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and for the UCLA student athletes, he actually purchased subscriptions for Headspace, which is a mindfulness app to use to help bring down levels of stress. There are ongoing efforts such as the Black Family Summit that have been meeting since Hurricane Katrina and involving persons like Dr. Anel Prim and social workers and psychologists throughout the country serving the Black community. So there are ongoing efforts. Mental health as a whole is an area that our country needs to place greater emphasis on and have greater funding of such efforts through our various
And you are
Medicaid,
you all like at the
Medicare.
National Medical Association? Are you sort of collaborating with other organizations like, for example, Black Psychiatrists of America or the Black Psychiatric Association of America? I know that there are other like national organizations kind of similarly situated as yours that focus on primarily mental health. So is there like some grand collaboration, for example, that's in the works, some sort of grand team up between you all as the doctors, where you look primarily at like overall public health or physiological health, and then the Black psychiatrist. Like we've had the president of the Black Psychiatrists Association on here before, Dr. Patricia Newton, and
Yes.
at some point she might come back. So I'm wondering if there's like some big massive collaboration that's going on between you both at this time.
So another very good question, Charles Ellison. And now that brings us back to our discussions we've had prior on the COVID-19 Public Health Manifesto through the collaboration with the Rainbow Push Coalition, the National Medical Association, and National Bar Association, and about 11 other health professions organizations, including the Association of Black Psychiatrists, Psychologists, whose president is Patricia Newton. So, yes, there are areas for synergy and collaboration, and this is continuing. And that's part of what I see my charge as incoming president, to continue building those networks. In fact, as president, I'm convening a commission on COVID-19 and people of color, co-chaired by incoming president of the National Bar Association, C.K. Hoffler, and also Dr. Deborah Holden, Associate Dean of Public Health at Michigan State University, Flint. So, and really increasing the visibility of the work that we're already doing with the Rainbow Push Coalition collaboration led by Reverend Jesse Jackson, Reverend Todd Urey, Reverend Jeanette Wilson. So there's a network being strengthened in response to the circumstances we find ourselves in now.
Yeah, yeah. Are we exploring more and more, and we talked about this before, Dr. McDougall, about how Black people are being treated when they're infected, how they're being treated during this pandemic, and even when they're not infected, but when they're dealing with some very urgent or dangerous medical condition and they have to go to a hospital. Have we explored that more and more? Is that something that the NMA is looking at? Because I'm still not getting a clear picture on that. And I know we've discussed this before, whether it's on this program or we discussed it a little bit during the Council of State Governments Micro Summit on this. But we had issues, Black people, Black communities had issues with medical institutions before pandemic, racial bias, from doctors and nurses and inside hospitals when Black people were seeking treatment. Either emergency treatment or treatment for chronic illness or chronic diseases. And so I can't imagine that these problems just magically went away because of pandemic and everybody sort of got their act together. What are we seeing with respect to that? What sorts of conversations are you having? And are you in a position, and are your members in a position where they're having those very firm discussions with medical institutions, hospitals about, hey, listen, we don't want to see any racist shenanigans happening here while we're trying to treat our community, this underserved community, through a pandemic time like this?
So another excellent question, Mr. Charles Ellison. So this speaks to that confluence of events with the murder of George Floyd and the national outcry against racism. So at our medical schools, I know at my medical school in particularly, we've developed an anti-racism campaign, and as Chief Diversity Officer, I've said repeatedly, this is not something that the underrepresented students and faculty and staff need to lead. It needs to be led and actively involve non-minority faculty and staff. So, because what happens, especially in academic institutions, there's this thing called a diversity tax, or underrepresented tax, or a cultural tax, and whereby we're spending all our energy on these issues that are caused by other people. So I'm charging our leadership to help with that and be part of the leadership team in addressing those issues. So we're developing, and if I'd like you to go to Ohio State University Medical Center and put in the term anti-racism, you'll see there is a platform where we're addressing this. The city of Columbus has declared racism as a public health crisis. The county I live in, Franklin County, has done the same in Ohio. We have done that at our medical center, and we're also calling on medical training institutions through the National Medical Association to take a similar stance. And for example, there are a number of resources available out there for people to reflect on their own values and perhaps implicit bias. On that website, you'll even see a 7-day cleanse for bias. That's through the Kirwan Institute on Race and Ethnicity, which is a national jewel in our community serving the United States. There are also excellent texts with reading guides by authors entitled So You Want to Talk About Race and Another, White Fragility, and whereby European Americans are being asked to reflect on and learn about the history of the United States of America through a different lens. So a very good question. And people, through these events, they seem to be additive. There's a one stacked on top of another, and is having an impact on the country.
Yeah, no, it is. It absolutely is.
Black Lives Matter, that's another. So we've had ceremonies and so forth. So people, and it's not just black people participating. It's multicultural. So that's been my observation, Charles Ellison.
Yeah, exactly. You know, everyone has to make a contribution at a moment like this. Everyone's going to have to respond. We've been talking with Dr. Leon McDougall, who is president, 121st president of the National Medical Association. That is the National Organization for Black Doctors. Go to nmanet.org to learn more about them, get more information on them. Black doctors in your neighborhood, in your city, are more than likely members of the National Medical Association. So check in with
The National Weather Service has issued a flash flood warning for the following New Jersey counties: Burlington, Camden, and Gloucester, plus the following Pennsylvania counties: Bucks, Chester, Delaware, Montgomery, and Philadelphia. Effective until 2:20 p.m., the National Weather Service in Mount Holly, New Jersey has issued a flash flood warning for Camden County, in southern New Jersey, northeastern Gloucester County, in southern New Jersey, northwestern Burlington County, in southern New Jersey, Montgomery County, in southeastern Pennsylvania, southeastern Bucks County, in southeastern Pennsylvania, northeastern Chester County, in southeastern Pennsylvania, Philadelphia County, in southeastern Pennsylvania, Delaware County, in southeastern Pennsylvania. until 2:15 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. At 10:15 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Doppler radar indicated thunderstorms producing heavy rain just south of the warned area. 2 to 3 inches of rain have been falling in about 1 hour with these storms. The heavy rain was moving north and will move into the warned area shortly. Flash flooding will likely occur. As a result, hazard: flash flooding caused by thunderstorms. Source: radar indicated. Impact: flooding of small creeks and streams, urban areas, highways, streets, and underpasses, as well as other drainage and low-lying areas. Some locations that could experience flooding include Philadelphia, Camden, Gloucester City, Cherry Hill, Evesham, Mount Laurel, Norristown, Chester, Willingboro, Deptford, Voorhees, Medford, Pottstown, West Deptford, Lindenwold, Phoenixville, Lansdale, West Norton, Hamilton, and
Digital tip of the week. Two-factor authentication or two-step verification is a security measure that requires you to provide additional information before you can log into a specific account online. You may have to enter a code that gets sent to you via text message or use an authenticator app. It's an extra step that might seem inconvenient, but it's there to keep you extra secure when you're shopping, banking, or connecting with others online using social media. Two-factor authentication is designed to keep you safe from unauthorized users trying to access your accounts, and it's definitely worth it. You can visit the different websites you use regularly and search the help section for security topics, ask a friend or relative to help you get set up, or type two-factor authentication plus the account you want to secure into Google. Any way you do it, adding another layer of protection to your online accounts is a good way to keep your information safe on the web. Stay tuned to WURD for more tech tips and stay connected with us at wordradio.com.
The Word Digital Tip of the Week is brought to you by Comcast NBC Universal. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, we're waiting on Noah Shanga. Noah Shanga, Atlanta-based lawyer, also electoral justice reporter for Prism Magazine. Go to ourprism.org for more information there and to check out her content as well. She was recently writing about the controversy over election delays. She's been doing a lot of writing, also a lot of action, being involved on the front lines and in the trenches on voter suppression, particularly in Georgia. So we've talked with her before, so she's scheduled to join us this morning. 215-634-8065. Phone lines are open. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Good morning to you, Shalata Sankofa, as you are watching us through Word TV on Facebook Live. Good morning, Cheryl Brown. Appreciate you as well. And Ace Khalif, good morning to you as well, bro. Mecca Shabazz, peaceful rainy day, Dr. Ellison, and to the onWURD family. That's right. So, you know, we can also look at this not as just a tropical storm warning that we have to be careful of, but this is just Mother Nature. This is God teaming up and blessing us with some needed rain, some needed water to refresh the landscape, refresh the plants and the flowers and the trees and everything else. So we definitely got to appreciate that. Rise and shine, Charles Kasahu Sarah. Good morning to you, Ella Ivory. Good morning, Patricia Ivory. Good morning to you, Fist Pump Back at You, Michael Cord, and good morning, Shirley J. Carter, all on Facebook Live. Feel free to leave your comments and your questions there. We appreciate that here on Reality Check during our Tuesday edition. Phone lines are open, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Noah Shanga joins us now. She is a longtime advocate, also been in the trenches fighting against voter suppression, lawyer, but more importantly, also currently electoral justice reporter for Prism Magazine. Go to @ourprisms, ourprism.org is the website you need to go to for some great insights and analysis from the trenches of this fight that we're going through right now, particularly during, it is one of those publications you want to go to during this election year 2020. Noah, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty all right today. Thank you so much for having me, Charles.
Okay, good to have you back. Really appreciate that. Once again, she's also Anoa, and two, before I forget, you're also very engaged, very active on social media, on Twitter more specifically, at The Way with Anoa. Also host of the Way with Anoa podcast, but at The Way with Anoa, if you'd like to engage her on social media, on Twitter there. So it's good to have you. Talk about this recent piece that you wrote, and Prism, one of the reasons I brought you back, but we need to have you back more often anyway. You had recently written that the media must do a better job at correcting the election disinformation that's pushed by the president,
Mm-hmm.
and you feel as if constantly reporting on the latest controversial tweet or statement is as destructive as the thought itself and even the intentions behind it. Explain that.
Yeah, so, I mean, as we saw coming out of the 2016 election cycle, there were a lot of issues with misinformation and disinformation. Misinformation refers to, just generally paraphrasing, some of the work done by PEN America. Misinformation refers to, like, incorrect information that's mistakenly shared, right? Like, you see some meme, you know, your mom or whoever may have done it on Facebook, they see some meme, they're sharing it, and they are doing it with no ill intention. Disinformation is the intentional act of sharing bad information. And why I think that, like, with the media, I think, as, like, the fourth estate, as a part of a pillar of democracy, has a duty to, like, it's one thing if you're going to debunk it and, like, make it very clear, particularly in headlines. A lot of, unfortunately, a lot of Americans still do not read past headlines, you know, the short soundbite type culture we're still in.
Right.
But it needs to be very clear, right? We did see some outlets absolutely automatically pushing back. Same thing when in this cycle the president was, you know, starting up his rhetoric around voter fraud yet again. But there were still some that had, like, these really really gentle, like, type of headlines, like, oh, the president has a different opinion about what might happen in the election, or just things like that. That gives the misunderstanding to the greater population that there is actually a conversation to be had about something that is definitively fixed constitutionally, right? And you and I had an exchange about this in terms of what are the harms that can be done in terms of this election. Failing to make sure that people have accurate, correct, verifiable, you know, the right information helps to, it helps to feed into and gives more space for the president, who already has his own, like, disinformation network, you know, massive ads and the whole social media network that they already have. But it further amplifies that even more so to people who would not be touched and causes more doubt. And as we saw with so many people who sat out of the election, and I'm not one that believes in vote shaming, but we saw a lot of people who felt like it did not matter. And if we start amplifying as the media the message that this person can do something that they actually cannot do, instead of clearly naming what is at stake, we unfortunately can feed into those anxieties and frustrations on top of what is already going on right now.
How do we and this is a needed discussion, and it's very complex, because it's like, how do we kind of balance that, Howard? Because on one hand, you're absolutely right. I hear where you're coming from on that. Like, we have to make sure that as we're having this conversation, as we're reporting on this, we're having commentary over it. We even see some of ourselves as pushing back against that kind of commentary or that kind of sentiment from a president. You know, so we want to kind of, you know, ring the alarm bells, so to speak. But at the same time, like, we have to be careful. Like, you understand what I'm saying? There's a balance between, okay, being careful here so we're not spreading the disinformation, but also making sure that we're keeping people alarmed and alert that things are going to happen. Things are happening now. How do we maintain that balance?
I mean, I think part of it is, one, you name the specific harms that are actually happening now, right? Like, a colleague and I were having this conversation about, like, the rise of fascism and all the things that he's doing, and I'm like, yes, I absolutely agree with that, but we need to name it. Specifically, we need to talk about what's happening with the Postal Service, right? The United States Postal Service, as several different accounts were tweeting yesterday, is not a business. It is a service, right? It is a service that is, it's the only mail-based service that serves every single household in this country, right, regardless of service area, et cetera. We're looking at having not only the defunding and the other strategic efforts that have happened over the last several years in terms of cutting back the funding and the service and other things that are happening with the Postal Service, but the failure to actually interact in this moment when we're still in the middle of this public health crisis, where we're still having increased reliance on absentee ballot use or vote by mail for those states that actually have vote by mail. And there's a difference there, too. I have an explainer on our site explaining the difference. But, you know, that's one thing, right, that is happening. And Donald Trump is actively and intentionally trying to undermine the use of absentee ballots or vote by mail processes, as well as undermining the Postal Service, right? That's one very clear thing that is happening. And like I said, we know this is not, we thought this, you know, folks thought this might be over by the summer. Here we are, we're in August. We unfortunately have kids going back to school right now, right? So this is not going to be all clear by November. We also have the constant rhetoric about voter fraud. There are polls showing that people are concerned about possible fraud, even as people know, like his being able to just go and check because the social media sites will do whatever they do, allowing him to spread disinformation. But like the media can be a check on what information we're seeing out there, right? And part of that, and we saw a lot of that in the springtime, but it needs to be a constant thing instead of like these headlines or this fake need to adhere to journalistic objectivity. Doesn't mean we have to give both sides the opportunity to speak when the other side is clearly lying on an issue and spreading intentionally disinformation, right? Like, so that's like the fine point there. And you shouldn't be giving both sides of an argument if we definitely know beyond all doubt that one side of that argument is just completely wrong. It's just like it's been fact checked and it is just factually incorrect. It is false. So there's no both sidism. When something is false, it's just false. So don't get into both sidism. Just report on it being false. And like I said in the article, there's a pattern and practice here with Donald Trump, whether it's him running for this office going back 2015, 2016, or now as president. There's a pattern and practice on the issues and concepts that he's continually lying and spreading misinformation about, right? And then we also have Donald Trump, along with the head of the Republican Party, along with other operatives, actively targeting places like Nevada, which just their legislature and their governor just passed a law that makes their general election process all vote by mail, right? So they were a state that was absentee ballot use. You had to apply for absentee ballot. Now they're going to be all vote by mail for this upcoming election. And he put out, you know, he's targeting states and targeting people who are doing vote by mail processes and spreading misinformation about that. And then people grab onto that instead of very clearly pointing to like what he's doing wrong, what he's saying that's wrong. But I also think that there is concern, though, as you and I were talking about on Twitter, about the potential for emergency powers to be used that could delay the quote-unquote peaceful transfer of power, right, after the election. That is actually a real concern as well, and that is another way that he can disrupt, you know, democracy. So we need to be very clear about the ways in which the current president, whether it's him as the candidate or him as the president, which is being muddled in one and the same, which is a very weird concept of what's happening right now. But, like, we need to be very clear about the ways in which that disrupted democracy is not just simply being disrupted, but destroyed by the clear attempts that are happening, and name them for folks, right? And I mean, there's enough, and to your point, Noah, there's enough that he's doing wrong where we don't need to engage in a lot of speculation or game theory as to what he's about to do, because it's already out there. There's enough stuff that not just that he's saying, but enough stuff that he's doing, and not just him. Let's just clarify there that it's not just him. It's like him, his entire political ecosystem, the entire Republican Party. It's folks in multiple states that are all enabling him or are all complicit in this. And, you know, it's another thing is with vote by mail, and then I do want to get into that emergency declaration part because or the use of executive powers, because there's something concerning me that was starting to bubble up yesterday or hit the surface yesterday as far as like the impasse on Capitol Hill. But you know, I was having this back and forth with a Republican strategist on Twitter about this, about voter fraud. You know, that like they're picking these isolated incidents of, they're not even voter fraud, they're just like malfunctions in the mail-in ballot or the absentee ballot process that have happened, just isolated incidents in different communities. And then they're piling these up and trying to make it seem like there's this big trend, there's been this big nationwide trend or pattern of voter fraud. And I'm like, show your study, fam. Like, where's the study?
Like I have
Absolutely.
not seen one Republican strategist. I have not seen one Republican-leaning publication ever introduce a study, like a comprehensive, conclusive study that
Mhm.
said voter fraud is a problem. And I kept asking him that, and he said, "Oh,
Because it
well,
doesn't
there
exist.
was this. Yeah, it doesn't exist. Well, there was this one moment where this one lady submitted her ballot and it had the wrong signature. I was like, but that's not a study. I've got MIT here, fam. I've got Brennan Center of Justice. I've got Brookings. I'm like, what you got? And he couldn't give it to me. He was like, well, we could go on about this all day. I'm like, well, we're not, because like, you're already proving my point. Like, you don't have a study.
No, absolutely correct. I mean, and what often gets pointed to will be stuff from the Heritage Center has this big database that goes back like 20 years or so with
Right.
like, I think it's 8 different types of fraud, right?
Yeah.
So when they cite numbers, oftentimes they'll meld in different things from that database.
Right.
But they'll also, like, some of those things predate, recent, policies and safety measures that are implemented, like, in the last 10 years, right? So, like, you see most of them date before 2010. But what's really interesting is House Republicans put out a piece of legislation called the EASE Act yesterday. It's significantly less money than what is been sitting on the table in the HEROES Act. The HEROES Act
Right.
overwhelmingly passed the House of Representatives and has been waiting for the Senate to take up at $3.6 billion for additional funds for election and voting rights, support for the November election. It is widely supported by even some Republican strategists, like former GOP party lead Michael Steele, and Washington State Secretary of State Ken Wyman. I mean, it has some support across the way, right? That's
Yeah.
the HEROES Act. This EASE Act is $400 million, and it focuses in on providing money to recruit poll workers, which is necessary because even though we do scale up and have vote by mail happening or absentee ballot use across the board, there are still people who need to vote in person for various reasons. We do still need to have access to the polls. I mean, early voting. There are a lot of things that people should be advocating for at their county and state level. But also this focuses on cleaning up the rolls, which is another thing they'll point to. There was a lawsuit, I think it was either New Mexico or Nevada, by a conservative group. And they were saying that because there were all these potential people who had not been removed from the rolls, that could be voter fraud if they sent out the ballot. Like, it's very speculative what they point to, right? It's very tangential, but not actually what happens in practice. And what we've seen in states where they have either sent out absentee ballot applications or they have sent out actually the ballots themselves, which few have done that, they're relying on who is currently on the rolls, right? So whenever the most recent cleaning or purge period has happened, which has its own set of issues, the people who are pending, people who have been declared inactive, they're not getting these ballots. But they're not going through that nuance, and they're just glossing over and throwing out numbers to kind of scare tactics. The last thing I'll say is they were talking about ballot collection, which they derogatorily call ballot harvesting, right? In this legislative proposal. And they were just
ballot theft. It's ballot theft.
That's what they call it. But ballot collection. But they referenced a North Carolina episode that happened recently with a staffer of a congressional campaign collecting incompleted ballots and throwing them in, right? That was actually a Republican congressman, right? So some of the instances they're pointing to, and actually some of the most notorious instances, actually involve Republicans, and they're not actually naming that, right? They're being dishonest because they have tried to cheat, because they think that because their people have cheated, then everyone's going to try to cheat. And what I will say about ballot collection is that in some areas, particularly in more rural areas that do not have clear access to, we have people who may be elderly, who may be otherwise high risk right now in the middle of a pandemic, who are social distancing and quarantining. Having the ability to be able to do ballot collection, as was just recently happened in Montana. There was a lawsuit that struck down a law in Montana that was brought by Native American voting rights folks, because out on the reservation, and especially if you have people who are quarantining and in the pandemic, folks aren't driving however many tens and 20s of miles to get to a drop box to drop off one ballot. Having a recognized, trusted person who can pick up people's completed, sealed filled ballots and drop them all off is a help to people who either don't have the transportation to begin with, or especially right now, because COVID-19 is not under control, are not trying to put themselves in harm, even if it's to drop off their ballot. So, I mean, there's some balance in here, but what you're saying is right. Like, they will drown you out in this both sidesism and these talking points, and we have very clear facts and data. Like, the fact that there might be this one person, like, people will point to the postal worker in West Virginia that was changing people's ballot applications. Again, that was someone who was changing applications to Republicans, to Democrats, right? So, like, these are very, like, isolated events. They are not. It's because, I mean, anything can happen. So if anything can happen, then we shouldn't ever do anything. And that's like a problematic way of thinking. There are safeguards built in the system. What we need to be arguing for in terms of protection and signatures is making sure that signature match, that if there are signature match issues on ballots, that people have the opportunity to cure. Because the overwhelming majority of the time, it's a simple issue of we don't write exactly the same way all the time.
That's right. I know. We gotta. Unfortunately, we gotta let you go. I gotta. We actually ran up on time. We gotta go to break. Anoa Shanga, electoral justice reporter with Prism Magazine. Go to ourprism.org for more information there. Great insights, and also to check out her writing. She's at The Way with Anoa on social media, on Twitter more specifically. She's highly engaged there. Definitely check out what she's up to. She's based in Atlanta, Georgia. It's always a pleasure. I know we'll have you back on more often, I promise you. And always a pleasure to have you on. Thanks so much. Take care.
Yep.
All right. Bye-bye. Let's take a break, and when we come back, phone lines remain open at 215-264-806-5. Toll free, it's 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back.
This message is from the Philadelphia Department of Public Health. COVID-19 is still a threat in our communities, but we can all do something simple to help stop the spread. It's critically important to wear a mask or face covering whenever you're in public or around others. Yes, even while social distancing. Wearing a mask shows you care for yourself and your community and is essential to slowing the spread of COVID-19. So love yourself, love your neighbors, wear a mask.
Be heard. Want another way to join the conversation?
Follow us on social media
using the hashtag onWURD.
Be heard.
Stay connected to Word Radio.
Independent Black Media.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and WordRadio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WordRadio.com. Word TV, Word app. I had a listener to this program, Kai, who was sending me an email yesterday, made a very good point here as far as getting registered, updating your voter registration, and applying, more importantly, applying for your mail-in ballot. And she makes a very simple point here. People can do that, because I know folks are having still problems with the Philadelphia City Commissioner's office. We will have the City Commissioner, Lisa Dealey, on next week, I'm told. But people still having problems as far as customer service and trying to get through and make sense of exactly what they need to do, especially as far as mail-in ballot. And there's still not a lot of clarity on whether or not we're going to expand the number of opened precincts in the city of Philadelphia. We'll get some clarity on those and other questions next week. But in the meantime, as far as applying for mail-in ballots, because there were a few people who called in yesterday who've been calling in and have been questioning about that. She makes a very good point. Votespa.com. Votespa.com. It's the Pennsylvania Department of State website, the Pennsylvania Department of State overseeing all election law and the officiating of elections for the entire state of Pennsylvania. So the Philadelphia City Commissioner's Office, it's following the rules laid out, the guidelines laid out by the Pennsylvania Department of State. And so go to votespa.com. She was like, I applied for my mail-in primary ballot through that website, and they sent me a reminder in July for the November election. I applied for my November ballot 5 minutes ago. She did this about 5 minutes before she emailed me as she was listening to the conversation we were having yesterday here on Reality Check, and she just got it, and she had just got a confirmation email from them. So that was yesterday. So she's highly recommending, and so I'm now highly recommending votespa.com. Keep it simple, votespa.com. You can apply for your mail-in primary. You can, sorry, not primary, but you can apply for your mail-in ballot through that website, and it appears they're giving confirmations by email as soon as you apply for that November ballot. So you're getting that confirmation email, and I assume most people anyway tuning in have email and are connected digitally. But she's absolutely right. The Pennsylvania Department of State oversees all elections in PA, and so she was saying that that's what she's going to start doing. And so the next big question is like, okay, well, now what happens on election day, or what happens on election month, as we've been calling it, right? And so, people are having concerns about the state of the Postal Service, it being deliberately underfunded and it being deliberately undermined at a time like this. And so, that's where we're going to have a conversation about, getting organized and getting people to, one, we need to find out about, like, is the city commissioner's office going to expand drop-off ballot locations throughout the city of Philadelphia? Are other places going to do that as well? What sort of system are they going to set up to meet people who want to drop off their ballots at a commissioner's office or at your local board of elections? If you have hesitation or you have public health concerns about going directly to a polling place. But we'll continue that conversation between now and November. Sandra out of Southwest is calling in for a reality check. Sandra?
Yes, hi, good morning.
Good morning.
I am just turning you on, so I'm not sure. Seems like you've already discussed the voting situation. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Seems like you've already discussed the voting situation. But my one question is, when do you know what day Lisa Dealey is coming on? Because I don't always listen. I don't have the capacity to listen every day. So
I don't have that.
And I was at the post office yesterday.
She'll be on next Wednesday. She'll be on next Wednesday, Sandra.
I was at the post office yesterday. It had to be, honestly, it had to be 60 people in line. I've never seen the post office with that many people. Had to be 60 people in line, and they had one clerk working.
Right.
I was there, and I put my application, my voter application ballot. I left it with the post office, so I hope, it gets to where it needs to be, so I can get the ballot, so I can vote. But It was ridiculous. It was 60 people in that line at least yesterday.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. I've seen, Postal Service always had those. I have seen a situation like that even before the pandemic, unfortunately. So every great now and then, I've seen that situation pop up in a major post office. Was there other people who were standing in line doing similar, like doing the same thing, dropping off their mail-in ballot? So you had already applied.
Well,
but you were, what were you doing? Were you dropping
the application? I'm not sure what the other people were in line for. I just was I was just dropping mine off because I already had a stamp. So
good.
Oh no, and you don't even need a stamp on that envelope.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
The voters, to send in your voter's application, you don't need a stamp. But I had some other mail that was already stamped, so I was just putting it actually in the mail. So
was this your? Wait a second. Let me just clear this. This was your application. This was not your ballot. This wasn't your ballot that you were dropping off.
Yes, this is the application. So now they should send me the ballot, so I can go ahead and vote. And I wanted to get mine in early, But there's going to be my point is there's going to be a serious problem.
Yeah.
If City Hall can't get this voting thing together, because it's absolutely true that the postal office is being sabotaged, so people can't send in their voters registration and their ballots. their ballots.
And that's
you know.
why folks, like I was just talking about a listener who was emailing me and saying, hey, listen, folks really just need to go to the Pennsylvania Department of State website, go to votespa.com, and just apply for your ballot there, because you'll get the email confirmation that they've gotten the application, and then they'll send you the ballot. So that's that, and I don't think a lot of people will, but I think it's like what I'm starting to get a sense of is that there's still the Philadelphia City Commissioner's Office has still not found a rhythm, and they need to get to that rhythm quick. I think that, but you allowed yourself a lot of time there. I mean, this is what, early August, right?
Right.
Ms. Sandra, and so I'm pretty confident. I mean, the Postal Service is good because we still get mail. So the Postal Service still has to operate. We still need to get mail. We still need to get things like, bills and even checks and things. The mail, I mean, I know that there's this overall impression that the mail system, U.S. Postal Service, has completely fallen apart. It hasn't, because I'm still seeing, I know I'm going to see it shortly when I look out my window. I'm going to see my mail person drive by just like any moment now. So, they're still doing it. And they're getting to certain neighborhoods a little faster than others. That some neighborhoods are more accessible, some mailboxes more accessible than others. But I think people are going to have to, like how you did, they're going to have to do it early to make sure things are processed. But going back to Kai's point, other folks out there, go to votespa.com and apply for your November ballot through there. You will get a confirmation email. Ms. Sandra, I have to let you go so I can bring on one other caller. Thank you for that. Thank you for that update. I hope other people call in as well and do the same. Sister Murray out of Northern Liberties is calling in for a reality check. Sister Murray?
Yes. Good morning, Solomon. Good morning, Charles.
Hey, that's all right.
Yes,
good morning.
Okay. Yes, you guys are all together. You're one family.
That's right, one word family.
You're all beautiful. But I would like to say thank you for taking my call. And also, I did mail in my ballot, my husband and I, and we did get an email back confirming that they have received it. So
great.
I need people to understand that if you just do the process and fill in all the information, you will get a confirmation. If you do not have an email, then you probably will not get one back on the email part, but you will receive your ballot in the mail. Also, if I can share something with you, Charles?
Sure.
These three words, Michael Jordan, Shaq, and Kobe Bryant, 8/24. We have to continue because his birthday is coming up. Kobe was born August 26, 1978. At the age of 18, he knew he wanted to be a father as well as a family man. And he died January 26, 2020, which was very strange when he died because there was a whole lot going on before this pandemic. But we need to keep Kobe alive, his life and his legacy, and also Shaq as well as Kobe and as well as Michael Jordan, because they were best friends. Also, let's just keep positive of all the things that we're missing. We're missing like the Dell with Patti LaBelle, and also the good food that she serves. And when you go to Patti LaBelle's house, guess what? You sure gonna get some lobster mac and cheese and some rack of lamb. So let's think positive. And for those who hasn't been to her house, well, she will feed you really good. Okay? So I just want to continue to say, stay positive, stay strong, and keep holding on to what keeps you moving each and every day. Because it will continue to keep you moving forward. Surround yourself around nothing but positive people and a lot of energy, because this will help you all get through what's going on. It's nothing new, but we have to move forward, and we got to move forward together. And I thank you so much for allowing us to come to you and just talk about what we're going through and how we feel, and keep your membership going. And if you don't have a membership and you don't want to, but I still like to see the Sean Jackson support WRD and give them some money. $50,000, $100,000 ain't gonna help. Ain't gonna hurt him.
You got it.
Right
you got
off
it.
the tax write-off.
That's right.
Let's do
That's
this.
right.
Amen. God
That's
bless
right.
you. Bye.
All right. God bless you as well. I appreciate you, Sister Murray out of Northern Liberties. Let's take a break, and when we come back on the other side, one, phone lines are open, and two, Mike Green is scheduled to come up next here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WordRadio.com, Word TV, Word app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Weather and traffic to keep you informed for your morning commute on Wake Up with Word. Weekdays 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. hosted by Solomon Jones. Right here on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Brothers and sisters, we've seen enough. It's time to get together. We can do big things together, just like they did. President Obama and Vice President Biden passed healthcare reform, helped rescue the auto industry, and created more than 15 million jobs. And right now, together, we can help Joe Biden do it again as president, to unify this country and fix the issues that we're facing right now. Real police reform, expanding access to high-quality education, protecting our right to vote, and rebuilding the economy so that it works for us. Now is the time for us to rise up and do this together with Joe Biden. Go to joebiden.com/BlackAmerica to learn more.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Take just one more step. You got it.
You're doing great. This is the sound of a nationally ranked top rehabilitation hospital, home to the largest collection of robotics in the United States, where we continually exceed patient expectations, because no injury is too severe or too minor for our care.
There you go.
This is the sound of success. Moss Rehab. Challenge accepted.
The Word Radio newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on Word Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the Word Radio newsletter. This is Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and WordRadio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WordRadio.com, Word TV, Word app as well. Phone lines are open, 215-634-8065. and 866-361-0900, and they are open for Mike Green, economic strategist, founding partner of Scale Up Partners. Go to scaleuppartners.com for more information. He is at Mike Green 2, Mike Green 2 on social media, on Twitter more specifically, where you'll find him there. He's also the co-facilitator of a new series called Common Ground Conversations on Race in America, and also just recently launched, we're going to talk a little bit about that, the National Institute for Inclusive Competitiveness, that just launched recently. Go to NIICUSA.org for more information. Mike, what's going on? How are you doing, sir?
I'm keeping busy. How about you, Charles?
No, always the same as you. So maybe we could do like a competition on who's the busiest, because it's like that. Especially they thought that you were going to get less busy during the pandemic, you get more busy because everyone's like, oh, you know, that cat is at home, so he got time to talk to me and do my work. So it's good talking with you, Mike. I did want to ask you about this effort. You've got the Common Ground Conversations going on. You've also got the effort around inclusive competitiveness. Just real quick, talk about how those projects are currently operating in this moment, and what do each of these series do?
Well, let me talk about the National Institute for Inclusive Competitiveness for a moment at nicusa.org. For 10 years, my partner and I, Jonathan Holyfield, who is the executive director for the White House Initiative on HBCUs, we started this consulting practice 10 years ago, Scale Up Partners, around the idea of economic competitiveness is ubiquitous across this nation for white people. But black people don't talk about economic competitiveness, nor do white people talk about inclusive competitiveness. In other words, preparing and equipping young black, brown people to compete in a globally competitive tech-based innovation economy that's fueled by our fourth industrial revolution, which is in accelerating the pace of obsolescence in the world. And so if we're unable to compete, what does that do? It takes us out of high-wage paying jobs. It takes us out of accruing generational wealth, transferable wealth. It takes us out of the ability to take care of our families in a tech-based society that says if you want to compete, you're going to need a higher level of education. You're going to need a STEM or STEAM-based solid foundation in order to play in this game. If we don't know the game, we can't compete. And so the idea of inclusive competitiveness is to start with the idea that we need more players on the field. The United States can no longer rely on white people alone with our shifting demographics to produce the vast majority of our GDP. We need more players. They need more players. And so we have to find a way to overcome these segregationist problems, systemic problems that plague our society, so that we can include more of the players in a multicultural society that are contributing meaningfully to our GDP. That being said, over 10 years of working with institutional clients, we have now got to a point where we have assembled a great team of societal change agents and launched the National Institute for Inclusive Competitiveness that is now going to develop the strategic planning process and the implementation of that process in partnership with HBCUs around the country. And it's led by Dr. Jamie Bracey Green, who is right there in Philadelphia. And that's where we're going to have the headquarters for the NIC.
Hey, you know, talk about that or expound on that statement you made a bit earlier. Black people don't talk about economic competitiveness. White people don't talk about inclusive competitiveness. And so that's like the case there. You mean, you just really made, because I always ask people that, like, okay, well, we know that we can't be too altruistic in this conversation. We have to understand that you have to set the business case for the broader society, right? For these big institutions, for white communities, and let them know, well, hey, this is the reason why we want you to, we need you to change your behavior and change these institutions. And that's the business case, right? It's more players on the field, as you say.
Absolutely. Every region, every local city wants to have a sustainable local economy. And when you have a large majority of your population that isn't producing because of systemic problems, impediments in their way, lack of support, lack of infrastructure because of a lot of reasons, and of course, they're individuals' decisions. But when you economically starve communities, they're going to make decisions in their best interest and sometimes not in their best interest. The problem that we have is not the individual decisions, but the systemic decisions that are made by policymakers and continue generation after generation. Now, that being said, when we talk about economic competitiveness, the idea of competitiveness is not new. When white people are looking for value, when they're looking for talent to compete in sports, they go to some of the most economically starved communities in this country, and they find black and brown kids who have that talent because they recognize there's value there. But when they're looking for scientists and CEOs and engineers, they're not looking in our communities. Why? Because they know that they have trapped us with the worst educational product that this richest nation in the world.
Mike, can you hear us? Mike? I think we've had Mike, but we lost him for a moment. Let's see if we can get him back. We were talking with Mike Green, who is founding partner for Scale Up Partners, and also he's just rolled out the National Institute for Inclusive Competitiveness. He's working with folks in Philly. Go to nicusa.org for more information on that, niicusa.org. We're going to see if we can try to get him back. So I think he just had like a signal issue because he's joining us from the West Coast. In the meantime, phone lines are open. Phone lines are open if you did not hear. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, toll free. It is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Just waiting until we get Mike Green back because it seems like we lost him. But phone lines have been open while we do talk with Mike Green, so feel free to call while we wait on him. 215-634-8065, toll free. It is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. While you can join in on our conversation with Mike Green, which just started, so we're going to try to get him back shortly. We have Patricia White here on Facebook Live. Good morning. Hey, can you hear us, Mike? Mike? I think we're still trying to get him back. 215-634-8065, toll free, 866-361-0900. Patricia White here saying, good morning. Please let us understand that vacation and time off for workers are happening. We're standing in line for everything else. We can stand in line for this. I think she's talking about just the situation right now. I think Patricia White is talking about, I think she might be a postal worker. So she's saying, you know, I think she was reacting to someone who was calling in earlier and was talking about how they were standing in line for a long time. It had 60 people standing in line, and you had like one postal clerk in that one post office, and there were like 60 people standing in line. That's the way she described it. I think it was Sandra out of Southwest who was talking about that. Patricia White saying, good morning. Please understand that vacation and time off for workers are happening. We're standing in line for everything else. We can stand in line for this. Oh, Patricia White, she's not a postal worker, but she's just saying, hey, listen, like it's August, and this is what happens during August. So, you know, people are going to be going on vacation. People are going to be taking time off, trying to recharge, reset, and that happens, and people should do that. And so that could be the case that's happening right now, as we're seeing. That could be one other factor that could be happening right now in a situation if you're finding yourself standing in line anywhere for a long time. A lot of folks there are folks who are working. Some folks are just off or recharging. That's one factor. It's a good point. 215-634-8065, toll free, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Also, Philadelphia Office of Emergency Management, this is for Philadelphia residents, they issued a flash flood warning until 2:15 this afternoon. There's a flash flood warning in effect in the Philadelphia area until 2:15 p.m. Another reason why you should stay indoors as much as you can. If you don't have to go outside, don't go outside, essentially. Dangerous flooding possible. Do not drive through flooded roads. I don't know how many times emergency management emergency responders have to remind people about not driving through flooded roads. People will do it anyway. Like, I don't care if you have an SUV, four-wheel drive, or a pickup truck, like, do not do it. So it's just not worth it. If you see a road that's flooded, it even, you know, it will fool you. It will fool you in the thing. It will look like it's just a puddle. It's not. Like, just don't drive through it. Like, figure out a way to get around it. 215-634-8065, toll free, 866-361-0900. Mike Green is back. Mike, how are you doing, sir?
Man, I don't know what happened. I get going, and the universe says that's enough.
Right. No, you were talking about definitely inclusive competitive, but we have some calls here for you, Mike. In the meantime, we had Timothy out of South Philly who's calling in for a reality check, our conversation with Mike Green. Timothy?
Yes, it's a pleasure, Mr. Green. And you have a guest, and you do a good job, Mr. Ellison, in getting people.
Hey, thank you, Timothy. Appreciate it.
I think about the HBCUs. When I think about the HBCUs, I'm a Lincoln graduate, and it was started by two folks that were from the west coast of Africa, and James brothers, and they went through the Presbyterian church. Like most places, they started with the church first. In the beginning, the church was trying to teach African American women to read and write. Then it goes into the institution of religion. But my point is that the good thing about the Washington machine is that it was the economic engine of that time. And we should never leave the models that have put us track of the road for success. So, of course, there was George Washington Carver there, and he had what we needed, the economic, vocational, and classical education combined. So I look at the HBCUs today. We can't always depend on the CEO of Netflix to give money, and that's good that the brother who gave the undergraduate paid the tuitions for them to in their graduation. They have to worry about monies. Those funding we need, but we need an engine on Lincoln University's campus, on Cheney's campus, down South North Carolina Central, all the way to Florida A&M, to not depend on anything other than that. And you know what? When we were together and we were locked out of the system, we had ways of making it like that. Whether we're going to use farmland, whether we're going to take the farmland and grow soybean, bean on there to corn, whatever the product is needed to keep our institutions running like any well-oiled machine. So with all these people coming out of there, scientists, physicians, engineers, teachers, tradespeople, whatever you do, you have to come back to university and build it up. With knowing that, what all that's around, like I've never had friends that graduated from Howard University, my cousin. He said, Tim, he said, now that we think about it, when we came out in 82, we should have bought all the real estate around Howard. You know, so I'm saying that we have that institutional issue on all our campuses. So I'd like to know, what do you think, and how are we going to do it, and how we get people to wake up to that? That it's okay to have a business inside of your university, a business that you have in your community, and a business that you have in anything that you have, because you need money for that.
Yeah. Timothy, thanks for that. I just want to give, I guess, a moment to respond. Mike? Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, you know, as far as, and you get back to like when you were making that statement, Mike, earlier on about how like white people, for example, they know where to find that the value and the talent when they're trying to fill teams for like, you know, basketball, football, or whatever, you know, and they go into our communities. They're not going into our communities searching for it, that STEM or STEAM talent, because they know that they have an we're taking part in an education system that's robbed us intellectually. But HBCUs can fill that void, right?
That's exactly right. The HBCUs have a 155 years legacy of success of cultivating the talent among the most vulnerable populations, the MVP of America, if you will. They understand the MVP. They are trusted partners with the MVP, and they have cultivated the talent in both workforce and entrepreneurial pipelines since the Civil War. Now, that being said, the HBCUs do not have an HBCU competitiveness strategy that aligns with the regional competitiveness strategies and the state competitiveness strategies and the federal competitiveness strategies. So we at the NIC, the National Institute for Inclusive Competitiveness, are becoming that intermediary platform that's going to help bolster the capacity of HBCUs, improve and scale up the value that they already have, and connect them to and align them with the regional, state, and federal competitiveness goals that will attract the investments that they need today to scale up the value that they already produce.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point, Timothy. Thanks for that. Let me, real quick, Mike, before we go on more with that, let me go to Maurice out of North Philly, who's calling in for a conversation with Mike Green. Maurice, what's good?
Yes. Hey, good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
My man. Every time I hear you speak, Mike, man, it brings flowers, brother. And one of the things I want to talk about is you talk about economic competitiveness, Mike, and you talk about competition race, and where we don't understand in the black community, Mike, especially here in Philadelphia, you have one group that we compete against are at an unfair advantage because they cheat. They cheating in the process with different practices, discriminatory laws, and different things they use. So for us to move forward, we must understand what is ailing us in the black community economically, Mike. And I always go back to 1865 and up because it's the historical past that we're missing out on, and we're not understanding how to close the wealth gap. Just this morning, I was listening to Dr. George Frazier, and he explained that it's going to take us 228 years to close the racial wealth gap, and it's going to take the Latino community 89 years because the Latino community have a mother and father, so they're bringing in 2 paychecks. We look at the black community, we're only bringing in 1 paycheck and probably the mother. So it's going to take us longer. So we don't understand how to fix this problem that we're in because we diagnose the problem incorrectly. But hearing you speak this morning and speaking on economic competitiveness and what's going on, this is what we have to learn, not just in Philly, but across America, Mike, but especially here in Philly. And I'm glad you're on the radio speaking about it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Maurice. Go ahead, Mike, if you want to respond to that.
Oh, you have some astute listeners, man. I'm telling you, he went back to 1865.
Always. Yeah, always. Yeah, everyone here. Yeah.
Let me pick up where he left off. Because the brother is dead on. I always in my series, Common Ground Conversations on Race in America, we take people back to 1865. Because when you ask about this whole notion of when was the greatest era in U.S. history, it was 1865 to 1872. Now, how can I definitively say that? Because between 1865 and 1872, here's what they did. They changed the Constitution 3 times to empower black folks with citizenship, to stop white folks from enslaving us, with the exception of incarceration, to give us the right to vote. And they impeached a white supremacist president. And when he escaped the trial by 1 vote, they expanded the citizenship so we would have standing in this country. And they started to help us build HBCUs. And they introduced the Freedmen's Bureau, which was funded by Congress for the purpose of giving us an economic foundation and to provide protection for us. Imagine that, protecting us. And we've been abused by the police. No, they actually had protection for us. And I say until 1872 because that was when the Amnesty Act gave white supremacists back the power. And by 1877, they had a great compromise, and they removed the troops, removed our protection. And by 1896, by the time the Supreme Court actually solidified in legal terms the segregation society that we were already experiencing, 1 black America and 1 white America. By that time, between 1865 and 1896, more than 53,000 black people were slaughtered. So in that time, 1865 to 1872, they understood that it was not our individual efforts that was going to help us get ahead. It was the systemic barriers. And so they tried to remove those systemic barriers. Those were the white radicals. I don't know where the white radicals are today.
And then what happened? What happened? Like in 19, would they come to some sort of realization that, we gave them too much?
No. It was a battle between white radicals, white progressive radicals, and white conservative supremacists. And ultimately, the white progressive radicals did not have enough political power by the time they got to 1852, because some of them were dying out and so on and so forth. The point is that when they were in power, they understood that the systemic barriers needed to be removed. Now, that being said, right now you have systemic barriers right there in Philadelphia, for example. All of the nation is blanketed by more than 500 comprehensive economic development strategies plans, CEDS plans, that are funded by the federal government and invested in by public-private partnerships. When you see the cranes on the buildings, when you see people developing the land and changing the communities and gentrification and so on and so forth, look at your CEDS plan. Your CEDS plans have predicted all of these. They set the 5-year conditions for prosperity in a region, and none of them include black and brown folks. We need our own.
Hey, we have to, and Mike, I'm gonna have to cut you off because I had to go to break here. So we want to bring you back, of course, as always. Mike Green's been joining us, economic strategist, National Institute for Inclusive Competitiveness. Go to NICUSA, NIICUSA.org for more information. At @MikeGreen2 on social media, on Twitter, if you'd like to engage him there, learn more. We're always engaged with Mike on social media. In fact, go to Twitter at @MikeGreen2. Mike, as always, thanks for your time, man.
Thanks, Charles. Take care.
Hey, take care. All right, you too. Let's take a break. When we come back on the other side, we're heading into a strategist segment with Mustafa Rashid of Bellevue Strategies. That's coming up next here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WordRadio.com, Word TV, Word app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Check out the Source lineup on Word Radio. Mondays, get ready for the rapping professor, Dr. Aaron Smith. On Tuesdays, it's Andrea Lawful Sanders. Then on Wednesdays, it's the Black Women's Leadership Council. On Thursdays, it's a second helping of Andrea Lawful Sanders. And on Fridays, it's Tiffany Bacon. Don't miss the Source. Monday through Thursday, 1 p.m. till 4 p.m. and Fridays, 10 a.m. till 1 p.m. Exclusively on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on wordradio.com and on the Word Radio app.
Pico has many ways to help you lower your energy usage and save money at home. Here's one. Have an old working fridge or freezer in your garage or basement? Pico will pick it up, dispose of it responsibly, and give you a $75 rebate. That's right, $75. Plus, you could save as much as $150 a year on your energy bill by getting rid of it. Just schedule your pickup at pico.com/recycling or call 1-888-5-PICO-SAVE today. Be sure your fridge or freezer is plugged in and working at time of pickup.
Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Need a new mattress? Stop by to see Julian, the mattress man, located at 7421 Stenton Avenue. You deal directly with the owner, Julian, to ensure the best prices on name brand mattresses like Sealy, Posturepedic. Call 215-424-5550. That's 215-424-5550.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and wordradio.com.
Yeah, that's a whole book, right, that Mike Green just proposed writing, the best years in American history, 1865 to 1872. So we definitely need to do a little bit more flashback on that. Maybe bring some more historians on to talk about those years when things were on the up and up right after the Civil War. Just for a very brief period of time, things were looking very good for black folks right after 1865. And then like that, 1872, things switched up real quick. But I really appreciate that conversation always with Mike Green. We'll definitely bring him back in short order. We're headed into a weekly strategist segment. We have joining us, well, he's not on just yet, but Mustafa Rashid, regular contributor here on Reality Check WURD, normally joins us for our strategist segment, among other strategists who join us for that weekly segment. 215-634-8065. 866-361-0900. Phone lines are open as we wait on Mustafa Rashid. 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900. Waiting on Mustafa Rashid for our weekly strategist segment. That should be on very shortly. So Junior Lee is... Oh, yeah. Junior Lee on Facebook Live. Dag, Charles, Mike was smitten. Some serious wisdom just now. Should have held him over. So, yeah, we would have definitely held him over. We had another segment coming up. We already had scheduled, so we had to keep it tight on the break. But I do appreciate that. I'll definitely relay that to Mike Green. 215-634-8065. We hope Mustafa's on his way because he was scheduled. Mustafa Rashid was scheduled. 215-634-8065. Toll free. 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Nakia Twin Campbell, 1865 to 1872. Historical facts, King, yes. Speaking historical facts, she also saying good morning to you as well. Good morning, appreciate you. Thanks for viewing us and listening. And Brother Charles, great topics. Our lives are literally at stake with not just this election, but everything from Corona killing us, guns killing us, police killing, white supremacists killing us, poverty, no financial security, no health care is horrible. I'm done. We should be fighting for our lives by any means necessary right now, as if we only have one day left on this earth, because it will eventually come to that, my black African people. The time is now. Appreciate you, Nakia, tuning in. I appreciate those thoughts too. So gotta get people fired up, get them motivated, and understand. I was having this conversation with brother on WONN this morning. We were talking about like the need to reactivate that warrior spirit, you know, not stepping out of these fights. We got fights that have to happen on multiple fronts. And so, and that has to happen now. So, you know, so Nakia Twin Campbell is very correct. We have Mustafa Rashid on with us now. who is founder president of Bellevue Strategies, Philly-based Bellevue Strategies. Go to BellevueStrategies.com for more information. He's joining us, as he occasionally does, for our weekly strategist segment. Mustafa, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
All right, all right. At Mustafa Rashid as well, with one E, on Twitter, on social media, where he is highly engaged, and he joins us here too, where you can engage him. So I've got to ask Mustafa, because I'm real curious about this. I just put this tweet out here the other day, and it went a little like micro viral. Didn't like explode or break down the internet, but definitely a lot of people noticed. And I have to ask, I'm like, where is Mike Bloomberg? Like, what happened to him? And what happened to his money? Like all that money. And he said he was going to play a big role, like whomever was the nominee on the Democratic side running against Donald Trump. And that's why he was running, because he viewed Donald Trump as an existential threat to the country. This is one of the richest men in the world, nowhere to be found. We haven't seen anything out of him.
Well, it does seem like it's been quiet. In May or June, I remember the campaign donated $18 million to the DNC, with the understanding that the DNC would take on that work, that they were better equipped, they had more people on the ground in those states, those battleground swing states, and that instead of trying to recreate an entire organization, give the funding to the DNC, who was already set up and doing that work. And so that was in early May or June when that happened. So I'm hopeful that process played out the way that they intended. The DNC would take it forward, and that there will be more funds going from Bloomberg to the DNC to keep that effort going.
So I see. It's just like, I didn't know about the 18 million. So we got 18 million. We're expecting more, and it's just going to the DNC. It's just like, you know what? Let's keep this simple. Let's just funnel this through the main big player who's overseeing this effort against Republicans and Trump, and that's the DNC. Okay, I mean, that makes sense. It's just real curious. I know a lot of other people, and that's why it kind of blew up a little bit on Twitter, because people were like, where'd that cat go? Like, it was like it's such a big game, right?
Correct, and I think there was a desire at first to say, hey, we're going to go at this, but then realizing, hey, the DNC was already set up to do this. Why reinvent that wheel? Especially now with campaigning and doing election work is a whole lot different now than when we thought it would be at the beginning of the year.
Exactly.
These resources and infrastructure to get that message out there.
And you know what I mean? And honestly, I mean, we don't need other former candidates in the Democratic primary, whether it's Bloomberg or Sanders or anybody else, like out there on the campaign trail. Like, we really don't. Like, we don't need you on that.
That's a very fair. Like, that would be just as curious as if Bernie Sanders were doing it, or any of the other candidates, Elizabeth Warren or them. I think it's better to have one unified voice and message pushing forward with that right now. I totally
agree with you on that. Okay, so that's good to hear. Sometimes, like, some of the best work is being done behind the scenes, but we live in a society, right, Mustafa, where everyone's measuring, it's like the number of followers you got, the number of selfies you put. Like, it's like, no, I'm behind the scenes doing the work, y'all. Like, I'm doing like real work, like rolling up my sleeves, and people don't believe it. Like, well, I didn't see you on Twitter. I didn't see you on Instagram. Like, no, that's not the measure of a man's work. Like, but anyway, hey, listen, what's that now?
I said it should not be.
It should not be. It should not be. Exactly.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think that Joe Biden is taking too long to pick a running mate? Because now it looks like we're extending that process by another 2 weeks.
I don't know if it's such a thing as too long if you get it right. Because it feels like, there's this buzz about it, but I don't know what it fundamentally is going to mean. Or you're voting, as always, you're voting for the person at the top of the ticket. And maybe you like the person at the second, maybe they compliment you in some way, but I think it's more important to get it right than to rush and get it through. People who are already supportive of the vice president of his campaign are already going to vote for him. So I can't imagine if there's a scenario like, oh, we got to hurry up, we got to do this. I think you want to do it right, and if it takes thoughtful and careful deliberation and making sure that you cover everything. I think you are on the side of that, or you could be like John McCain did 12 years ago and sort of rush through that process and get someone who wasn't properly vetted and embarrass yourself publicly. I'd want to avoid that. So I'd take all the time that I could to make sure I got it right.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't mind like him taking his time.
Yeah,
I really don't. Like, hey, take your time, fam. You know, like I mean, whomever he picks, like whomever's on that list, is way better than Mike Pence. I mean, it's way better than like Donald Trump, really, right? And so I'm like, okay, well, whomever he picks, like, I'm good with it. Like, he could pick that person on the eve of election day, like the day before election. I would be fine with it. I would be like, I have total confidence that whomever he and his camp pick is more than adequately vetted and qualified. Who do you think that's? I mean, let's talk about the names. You know, it seems like a silly question, but people still want to know, right? Like, who do we think? Well, let's like at least game theory on some of these names. I think it's kind of going back and forth between. You don't hear a name a lot, Val Demings and Kamala Harris, and for specific reasons on that. But I mean, I know that there are other names in there, but I think that's where the back and forth is going on right now.
Yeah, it is. And so let me, before we get into sort of the racehorse of it, what's the disadvantage of taking longer? You get to extend the news cycle. You get people to talk about you. You get to delay the part where the bump and the buzz about the person that you pick, the pros and cons, the goods and bad, like that, because that's a news cycle of itself. So if you can delay this by 2 weeks and then you get 2 weeks out of the pick, then you've captured 4 weeks of coverage that's just focused on your campaign.
Right.
Not bad.
That's not bad at all. No,
I agree, but it's not bad.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it that way. That's true. That's true, because more and more people, because I mean, there's one way for you to, because people like the melee and the speculation and the horse race.
Yeah.
Even though people will lie and say, well, I don't care about that stuff. No, yes, you do care. Like, because that's why the news cycle adapts to how everyone's thinking. Like, that's all y'all care about is the gossip. Yeah, so that makes sense. I didn't think about that.
It's political, correct. If you can squeeze 4 weeks out of it, then this is August. That puts you in September. That gives you 60 days out, and you've done pretty well. Because the incumbent, the president, can't do that. We already know who his pick is going to be. So you know. But anyway, on to the two names that you mentioned. I think they're both being properly vetted and looking at their pros and cons and seeing what it is that they bring to the table. And I think they're two great qualified candidates. And knowing that this could be the first time an African-American woman could be on the ticket, I mean, I think that could be exciting, or would be exciting for a lot of people. And I'm curious to see how this process plays out, see how they both complement, or how the vice president thinks that they both complement his candidacy.
Right. Here's my other question. Will black voters make up their mind around whomever that pick is? Because it's like black folks are saying, I want a black woman. Okay, he picks a black woman. And then, like, my thing here is that then, like, you're going to have black folks who have problems with whatever black woman he picks. Like,
of course. Yeah.
You know, like, oh, well, I don't like Val because she was a police chief. What, black people can't be police chiefs? Like, I don't like Kamala because she was a prosecutor. What, you saying black people can't be prosecutors? Like,
correct.
What the hell?
Yeah, I can see how people could have complaints or concerns about both sides, which may be part of the reason why this vetting process is taking so long to weigh all the pros and cons. But I think the bottom line is, where do African Americans, by and large, think that their country will be in 4 years from now if Donald Trump is elected again? I think that's the biggest question that you have to ask yourself. So it's not I'm not going to vote for him because I didn't like his running mate. Do you think that will be worse than what for African Americans in this country than what we currently have?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Which, you know, goes back, I mean, especially when we're looking at, okay, well, what's going to happen in 4 years? That's where it kind of weighs or it leans more in the direction of Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, one, showing a lot of fundraising prowess. I mean, just last week she raised $3.5 million on a fundraiser, and you know, so she's got that kind of star power with respect to fundraising, and people seeing her as having kind of the energy to do this, and being from the largest state in 2024, because he's just going to do one term. Biden's just going to do one term. You already said that. So you want someone who is more ready to hit the ground running, or at least gives the impression that they will hit the ground running as far as executive management skills and being able to run at that scale in 2024. And so Kamala, even though she's from a state that you really don't need, you already got, but Kamala kind of fits, she checks off a lot of that. The other thing too, you're kind of switching gears here a bit off the horse race, Mustafa. The president making statements as he always does on a daily basis. He just recently, we were watching an Axios interview last night on HBO. He completely dismissed John Lewis. Like he completely dismissed the memory, and so that was expected. Like I wasn't really disappointed or shocked about that. I'm like, of course he's going to say that. But he was saying, you know, I've been the best that there ever was for Black Americans. This thing about delaying the election and vote by mail, how do we keep our eyes on target and on the prize, you know, kind of cancel out the president's noise and, you know, and just really focus on making sure that this stuff works, that vote by mail works, that limited polling locations work, that, you know, we got to, I feel like we're getting too caught up in kind of the things that the president is saying and what Republicans are doing every day. I really need to see people just start getting focused and getting organized and mobilized.
Yeah, and I think that starts at home, in your home city, your home state, and doing what you can. And Pennsylvania is no excuse. Absentee ballot voting, which is the first time this year. And so, you know, you can do your mail-in ballots. You don't have to and get that done, or make sure you're registered and get that mail-in ballot in as soon as you possibly can. And knowing that this process, like we may not have a full tally for some time afterward. And this president, as he is wont to do, is already coloring this as a flawed process, as suspect, which, you know, will be fine if he wins. But if he loses, you know, or it's close, he's going to say there's something wrong with the results. So he's already setting the table for how it's going to be. And so I would ask the people to try to help the process of eliminating as much confusion as possible is to get your mail-in ballots early. You know, there's going to be a deadline for them, when they can be received, when they can be counted. Get them in early so that it doesn't play out the way that he's portraying it to, so that he can cast doubt or judgment on the election results.
Do we need to open all polling precincts in a place like Philadelphia, Mustafa? What do you think?
I don't think it's safe enough to do that yet. I mean, even if you did right now, Charles, you're going to have a lack of people to work those places. Like that's going to be like you're not going to have enough people to work all the places. People are not going to be comfortable going into all the places, and so opening them all, I think as a mechanical process, you may not even be able to do if you don't have enough workers who feel comfortable doing that. Because look at most of the people who do that work are older people, retirees, and those who are the same that are most risk for contracting the coronavirus. And so you know.
So tell me, what are you hearing, Mustafa? Okay, like I get that, right? Mostly older people working at these polling precincts. What's going on with the city commissioner's office and getting young people to work at these polls? There's supposed to be this special student poll worker program. I don't see any big, massive citywide effort to hire young people, to get people from maybe even 17 years of age. Well, I mean, that's how you keep young people busy throughout a summer. Get them involved in the election of a lifetime. For the life of me, I don't understand why people are not tapping into young energy.
Yeah, it is a fair point, and you're right that young energy is there. I mean, we've seen, I think at one point we saw 30 straight days of protest here in Philadelphia.
Right.
Mostly led by young folks. So yes, there is an appetite and desire for young people to lead the cause for change, and that should be channeled into something as fundamental and concrete as voting. I agree with you. Now, where that stands from the city's perspective, they're hiring young people to do voter outreach. I'm not aware of that actually happening, but I do think it's something that they're taking a look at, because you're right, that would make perfect sense. And if you add on that as a crime prevention, anti-juvenile delinquency process, like that's something as well. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't get it. Hey, Mustafa Rashid, always a pleasure talking with you. Bellevue Strategies, he's founder, CEO of Bellevue Strategies. Go to bellevuestrategies.com, at Mustafa Rashid. And so he's a regular contributor on our strategist segment. We got to have him on even more often as we head into November. At Mustafa Rashid on Twitter, on social media, joining us here on Reality Check. Mustafa, always a pleasure, man. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Charles. Thanks for having me on. Have a great day.
All right, do the same, and we'll see you on the other side of the Four Horsemen in the hopefully in the coming months. So as pandemic continues. All right, let's take a break And phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
This message is from the Philadelphia Department of Public Health. COVID-19 is still a threat in our communities, but we can all do something simple to help stop the spread. It's critically important to wear a mask or face covering whenever you're in public or around others. Yes, even while social distancing. Wearing a mask shows you care for yourself and your community and is essential to slowing the spread of COVID-19. So love yourself, love your neighbors, wear a mask.
Support independent black media and join the 4WORD movement now at 215-425-7875 or visit wordradio.com.
Do you need health insurance for your children? The Children's Health Insurance Program, also known as CHIP, provides quality, affordable health insurance for Pennsylvania kids. CHIP ensures that kids can go to the doctor, receive health screenings and vaccines, and get what they need to live a healthy childhood. Families can be covered by CHIP no matter how much money they make. If you've experienced a recent change in employment or income, CHIP may be a good option for your family. Visit chipcoverspakids.com to apply or learn more.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
Part-time job, full-time hustle, all-time Shiro to all of us. You nurture, we listen. You teach, we thrive. You lift our spirits, but we've got to lay down the truth. It's time for you, our Shiro, to stretch for the stars. Start saving more for retirement now, so you can feel prepared and live your life to the fullest. Get free tips to help boost your retirement savings now at aceyourretirement.org/Shiro.
A message brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and wordradio.com.
Okay, welcome back. Phone lines are open 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065. Toll free, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Phone lines are wide open. Also, let me see, Philly Cleaning Knowledge. Sir Charles, the thing is that, yes, these so-called women of color served America first by enforcing hard laws on people. They look like this country doesn't have African Americans' best interest voting or not. What will any African American woman of color do to free is from bondage, 13th Amendment dress code? I do not understand. Just be clear. So, I'm sorry, Philly. I have no idea what you just wrote. So I would love to read it and provide some fresh insights here on Reality Check, but I just don't understand it. Sorry, I tried. Let me go to Rick out of Germany, who's calling in for a Reality Check. And phone lines are open, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Rick calling from Deutschland here on Reality Check. Rick, what's going on? How you doing, sir?
You believe in America. Mm-hmm. You believe in the voting process, even through this crisis of COVID-19. Mm-hmm. I don't believe.
Okay, well, I mean, that's your prerogative, but you know what? That's one of many tools that are at our disposal, one of many weapons in the arsenal to use. I'm not saying that that's the only way. I never said that that was the only way. No one else, and I'm going to be very, I've warned people about this. I'm not going to engage in conversations about holding votes or not voting or non-voting. It's ridiculous. It's insane. And frankly, respectfully, sir, it is a very white, you of all people should know, living in Germany right now with the rise of white nationalism. This is a global white nationalist effort to suppress black political power and black economic power. So for you to be going on a talk radio station and black folks who keep doing this and talking about hold the vote, don't trust the vote, don't vote, it's about the white supremacist, most white nationalist thing that people can do. That's with all due respect, sir. So I'm just, I have zero, hold on here. I have zero tolerance. I'm just letting you know I have zero tolerance for that kind of talk and for that kind of language. And I forewarn people about that. This is not the election to be messing around with. We got to keep this simple. And people keep messing around with it and want to have like esoteric conversations about voting and what it means. Just get your butt registered and get out there and vote. And so, I mean, like I said, you in Germany, you see what's going on out there. I mean, the whole military out in Germany has been infiltrated. It's gotten serious. It's escalated where the whole military in Germany is being infiltrated in a large way by white nationalists. So especially with the kind of history they've got, so I would think that you, of all people, would know that.
Can I respond now?
Yeah, go ahead.
I said, I don't believe. I am one man. But you have an audience. You have an audience of young people who do listen, not a whole lot, but who do listen. And you have to convince them that the vote is critical to their life.
But, you know, it would be helpful if even folks like you, sir, would also engage in that fight and stop, because sometimes when they're looking up to folks like you, especially older, you know, folks or people from our older generations, they're looking for that encouragement. But then they're seeing people like you and others who on Facebook or wherever talking about, well, I'm going to hold it. And so, you know, they're following your lead. You're not just one person, you're one person. And then, you know, you calling into a radio station like that, that voice gets amplified. And that just makes my fight, and that makes the battle of my ancestors, the people that bled and fought and died for us to get to this point with this simple right, that makes that battle harder. So it's like, I wish I would hope that at some point you just say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna join in this fight. You know, I'm gonna make sure that all like brothers and sisters is getting out there and they voting. Like, you know, we got to set aside kind of these are petty grievances right now until we get on the other side of this November election. Because if we lose it, that's it. It's done. There's not much hope for anybody after that point.
Point
still
taken.
there, Mr. Rick? Yeah. I'm asking you. So now I'm lowering the tension down a little bit, and I'm asking you to join in that fight. I'm just asking you to join that fight, you know, instead of spreading that conversation, because there's a lot of people having that conversation. And quite frankly, I'm alarmed. I just saw a poll 2 weeks ago saying 16% of black respondents, black folks in that a nationwide survey, saying they might not vote or they're not voting. That's ridiculous. That's insane. That is insane. That is dangerous. And it's dangerous when like folks that's why I shut it down. I have no bones about shutting that kind of talk down. Like, because that's part of that fight. So I'm hoping that you will join us. I will wish that you will be a warrior, a political warrior with us and join us in this fight and encourage people, young people included, to vote. You know, or to get involved in terms of like political and civic participation. So but I appreciate you, Mr. Rick, for listening in and calling from Germany. I do. And you know, calling again and give us some dispatches on how it's getting rough out there in Germany. I talk to people out there in Germany, and I read the news and what's happening over there, and some of what's happening here in terms of how our political process is being undermined is shades of what happened in Germany in the 30s into the 40s that led to the conditions that led to World War II, that led to the conditions that helped Hitler come to a rise. I mean, that's why I agree with and I appreciate Congressman Jim Clyburn, what he said on the Sunday talk shows just this past weekend. You know, it's that real. And so, like, we all have a responsibility and obligation, not just as black folks, but as, like, citizens and residents of this planet. Like, we got to save it. This is that moment. Like, people messing around here, man. Like, y'all messing around having these, like, idiotic conversations about whether or not y'all should be voted. That is the most irrelevant, and frankly, that is the most, it's, you know, like, please, Mr. Rick, don't let me hand out the, like, White Nationalist Award of the Week to you. You know what I mean? Like, come on. Like, let's get it together. People need to get registered. They need to vote, and it's exhausting. I'm not going to try to convince people like that's a legitimate argument. It's I'm not going to entertain. I'm not going to entertain that as a legitimate argument. It has no legitimacy whatsoever, especially in this community. Not voting. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. And especially with respect to young people, Mr. Rick does make a good point here. With respect to young people, like we're going to have to do some hard work as it relates to that. And, you know, here you had you had young people, our younger folks, like showing all this energy all this pent up energy, especially during this pandemic. God bless them. They're going through, especially teenagers. I got a teenage daughter, and she's and I can see the frustration in her face, but she's working through it. Like she's keeping busy. She's doing work on the front lines of some of this stuff that she's concerned, and she's like, you know what, I know that this is a big moment, but they showed us that energy. They were screaming at us to let them lead. And it's like, it's going to have to be more than just, oh, hey, let's get the young people registered, let's get them to vote, or shaming them into voting. Like the city of Philadelphia, what are you doing? What are you doing in terms of getting young people participating? It just had one of the top strategists in the city of Philadelphia, top political strategists in the city of Philadelphia say, I'm not seeing anything, city commissioner's office of the city talking about hiring or getting young people involved at the polls. He just talked about worker shortages at the polls, and that's one reason why they're going to close the polling precincts. It's like, what do you got all these young people out here? What are you doing? What are you doing? And you want to blast the young people and talk all kinds of smack about them, that they're idle, that they don't know what to do. They out there, engaging in all sorts of unseemly activity. It's like, get them involved. This is all sorts of things that are available, all sorts of activities. During an election year, you got campaigns going on, y'all got fundraisers, you're raising money, pay these young folks to go to the polls or to do whatever, or to get out there and get in the trenches and get mobilized and show them how this thing works. I don't know, I have absolutely no idea what y'all are doing right now. Let me go to Teddy out of Fredericksburg, Virginia, who's calling in for a reality check. Teddy, what's good?
What's good? How you doing there?
Right.
It's a myriad of things that are going on. Our cerebellum and cerebrum and medulla. But I was looking at the situation of the unfortunate situations of this country. What we're going through has always been here, but it's being rebuffed. And it is easy to be frightened by the wickedness that we see all around us, and overwhelmed really by the problems we face. Evil is obviously much stronger than we are, but I assure you, definitely I assure you, however, that God is even stronger, and he will conquer all evil, and his spirit and his word lives in our heart. And I'm looking at the cracks that I've been looking at my elderly age. I'm in my 60s, from New York City. I live down here now. I'm also retired from the job. And I'm looking at the cracks in our medical system that is supposed to help us according to the rules and procedures from our jobs that we pay into for life. I'm discerning what type of power, what type of authority, what type of anointing, what type of prayer fervency that us, some pastors, ministers are doing. And I'm experiencing and seeing in depth, and it hurts my heart. So that's the prayer that's coming in. This COVID is keeping us at bay for us to continue in prayer for all, or even me have been guilty, and not continuing the prayer. And so I'm experiencing, seeing this in depth with all understanding, the hidden, untruthful ways of our government, of our media, of our amendments, and our court systems, and our education systems. But to get into the reprobation, no. Making amendments, it sounds good on paper. It sounds good back in the day for the wrong that one has done to us by paying money. I'm encouraged by staying by the back of our ancestors that have killed, been tortured, have been put aside, that the congresswomen all the way up to our congresswomen now, like a Kamala Harris and Karen Bass, and you have a Congresswoman Sally, and you have Gonzalez, and you have McBath, and Ocasio-Cortez and Torres. So that is an encouragement to be staying and giving support. Look at Sojourner Truth has given all that support and truth for those who were running away, those who couldn't think, those that were afraid. So all of this is building, and it's time to bring together whoever we are in this
country to come together in that understanding and not be befuddled and belittled by what is being said by the media or by your neighborhood.
That's right. And Mr. Teddy, I'm gonna let you get the last word before you head in the break. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I have to because we had to head in a break, had to keep with the time. But I appreciate you, Mr. Teddy, because this is God's work. This is God's work. What we're trying to do, trying to get this thing done. The exercising our right to vote, mobilizing around that is God's work. So, Mr. Teddy, I appreciate you coming out of Fredericksburg, Virginia. And he understands, especially being down there in Virginia, Fredericksburg especially, because especially my mother's family being from down that way. So, and I remember those stories very vividly that he used to tell me as a child, some of the things that they went through in places like Virginia, Georgia, and elsewhere. All right, let's take a break. And when we come back on the other side, we're heading into the 12 o'clock hour. Haley Potter from the Century Foundation is coming up next to talk about equitable funding for public schools. Coming up next here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WordRadio.com, Word TV, Word app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Legal information, Black history, hip-hop, and much more. It's the Radio Courtroom with attorney Michael Cord every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. right here on WURD 96.1 FM and 900 AM. Streaming live at WordRadio.com and on the Word Radio app.
Hey, Word family! Our friends at Amoroso's Baking Company are hiring right now. Amoroso's has been baking the delicious bread in our community for over 100 years, and they want you to join their team today. The old and the young love Amoroso's, and they are hiring right now. Check it out. They offer fair pay and provide health, dental, and prescription plans after 90 days employment. Call 856-754-0355 or visit amorosos.com for details.
Show some love for your favorite neighborhood with Word Radio. It's the Summer of Freedom Virtual Neighborhood Love Tour. Mondays and Thursdays now through August 20th from 1 p.m. till 2:30 p.m. Shining a light on Philadelphia's neighborhoods with a focus on neighborhood history, Philadelphia's freedom fighters, and community resources that are helping to shape the city's future. Mondays with the rapping professor Dr. Aaron Smith and Thursdays with Andrea Lawful Sanders. It's the Summer of Freedom Virtual Neighborhood Love Tour. Mondays and Thursdays 1 p.m. till 2:30 p.m. exclusively on Word Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on WordRadio.com, the Word Radio app, and on Word TV via YouTube and Facebook. The Summer of Freedom Virtual Neighborhood Love Tour is sponsored by Wells Fargo and PICO.
Family Therapy Vignette Moments with Dr. Lucille Ijoy.
Come on out and become a Word Radio member one by one. Renew your membership or get a new one. Get serious information and have 215-425-7875. That's 215-425-7875. Come on out and become a Word Radio member one by one. Renew your membership or get a new one. Get serious information and have some fun.
Lifting every voice till earth and heaven ring. This is Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and WordRadio.com.
Yeah, everyone in the Philly area, please stay home if you can. There's a lot of severe flooding I'm seeing reports on social media and elsewhere. People also giving firsthand accounts of bad flooding happening throughout the Philly area. There's a lot of places along the eastern seaboard throughout the northeast U.S. Experiencing either high winds or lots of flooding or a combination of both, and even tornadoes touching down. So a lot of tropical storm conditions that are out there. So please stay home. Please stay home if possible, and don't risk it if you don't have to go outside right now, because there's a lot of severe weather flowing through the Philly area and elsewhere. So stay off the roads as well. So those there is In fact, just I was telling you, Philadelphia Office of Emergency Management issuing a warning earlier, flash flood warning, and that flash flood warning is in effect for the next couple of hours, for the next 2 hours, maybe a little bit over 2 hours in the Philadelphia area. So flash flood, apparently the flooding is so intense and severe. We're seeing signs of that, that even other people are seeing it, and they're saying, they're kind of giving their firsthand accounts of it on social media. So, definitely that's something that we have to kind of watch out for and be careful of, and just be careful of just stay at home if you can. And we'll continue to give you updates here on Reality Check, and I'm sure throughout WRD through the rest of our programming as well. Joining us now is Haley Potter. She is a senior fellow with the Century Foundation, and you can get more on her at Haley TCF, and more on the Century Foundation at tcf.org on social media for more there. She joins us by phone here on Reality Check, and we're going to talk about funding for K through 12 education. It's a lot of underfunding going on. Haley joins us by phone here on Reality Check. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Charles.
Oh, no, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate this. And for more information on the Century Foundation, you want to go to tcf.org for more information on the Century Foundation. So we're seeing underfunding for K through 12 schools. There's been a lot of conversation about education lately, but when we're talking about the schools, we're talking about them amid pandemic and about school reopening, school closures. It's very fascinating to me, Haley, how, especially during big major election cycles like this, education is one of those issues that kind of gets left out. Even in 2016, we talked about education, but it was really about student loans, didn't talk about K through 12. Here's an opportunity, again, to really talk about not just school closure, but to talk about funding. And underfunding of those K through 12 schools is about nearly $150 billion annually. But where should public school education funding be? What's the ideal complete amount to get the kind of education system we need for our children?
That's right. So often education is left out of the conversation about what we need. And I think this pandemic is showing us more than ever that schools are critical in so many ways for serving students, for serving families. And our study is showing that even before we had this crisis, we were entering in with big education gaps. So we know that when states invest more in public schools, students tend to achieve better outcomes, and that it costs more to serve students who have greater needs. But it's been a big question, sort of exactly how much we should be spending and in which districts. And that's what our study was doing for the first time. So we have a cost estimate for every school district in the country to say how much would it cost to educate students in that district up to at least the national average of student performance. That's sort of a baseline goal. Let's say, let's get everybody up to what our current average is. And if you add up all those costs and then look at the gaps between what we're spending right now, that's where you end up with this $150 billion shortfall. I would argue, we would want to see students doing better than average. We've set what we consider to be a low bar that we should clear, and even there, we have this big gap. I think the takeaway message for the country is we are not spending enough in order to achieve the outcomes that our students deserve.
And you're studying, and folks should go to tcf.org to take a look at this study, which Haley and her colleagues worked on, Closing America's Education Funding Gap. Go to tcf.org for more on that report. It just had dropped about a week or two ago. That's across the board for all schools, but it's particularly pronounced for schools in low-income districts or schools where you have a high proportion of Black, Brown, Indigenous students as well. Talk about those funding gaps when we look at them across demographic areas or across demographic racial lines, how even deeper they are, how more severe they are.
That's right. The real story here is a story of educational inequity. How many resources your school district has really depends, unfortunately, largely on patterns of demographics. If you're in a majority Black or majority Latinx district, those districts on average face a funding gap of more than $5,000 per student on average. And that's per year. So every year they need an extra $5,000 per student just to get up to this baseline of average performance. By contrast, districts that are majority white on average don't have a gap. They're actually already receiving $1,000 more than the target spending that would be needed in those districts.
Oh, wow. So you're getting $1,000 more on average? Wow. Wow. So for Black, brown students, $5,000 behind, white students, $1,000 ahead. Like they get more money. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
That's right. That's right. And well, I mean, you can look at a local example in Philadelphia, I think, that's just so powerful. Philadelphia, as a school district, has the 7th largest funding gap of any district in the country. So just for Philadelphia alone, to get the funding they need to achieve that bar of average national outcomes would take $1.4 billion per year more than is being spent. And that's because Philadelphia is only spending about $12,000 per pupil currently, and our model says it would actually take almost twice that. They should be spending more like $22,000 per pupil. That's a dramatic story. Cross the border over into Lower Merion School District. Lower Merion School District, very different demographics. Less than 10% of students in that district are eligible for free and reduced price lunch. It's less than 10% Black students, less than 10% Latinx students. They are spending $26,000 per pupil. And our model says that that's almost $20,000 above the cost target. And that's great. We want to see well-financed schools for all students, but it's not fair that we see some students getting access to that and other students not getting access to that. And, you know, this is the difference of being on one side or the other side of a school district border that really is determining the educational fate of students.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I hear you on that. How is that bad funding model, that inequitable funding model manifesting itself? How is it operating? Like what are we saying on average? Like we know that like we have inequitable funding, like for example, in Pennsylvania, you know, particularly when like the funding model is based quite a bit on the zip code you live in, on property taxes, et cetera, and how the funding is distributed. That's pretty much the case like throughout the nation, or is it like a multiplicity of funding formulas that add up, where it doesn't matter where you go, to inequitable funding or disparity in terms of the resources that get to certain segments of the student population?
The root of much of the education funding inequity we see has to do with this fact that across the country, education is mostly funded by local property taxes. And that means that the wealthiest areas that have the lowest concentrations of student need are the areas that have the most resources. So that's the exact flip of what we would need for a system that provides equitable opportunities so that students with the greatest needs are getting extra supports. Federal funding and state funding systems are supposed to be designed to help correct that. So they're supposed to give extra money to schools and districts with high poverty student populations, with more English learners, with more students with disabilities. But one of the things our model shows is that even in cases where that's supposed to be happening, it's not enough. You can look at some states like Connecticut, which is known for having a progressive funding system that sends more money to high poverty districts. And still, even in that state, there are districts that, by our calculations, aren't meeting this basic bar of enough resources to get average outcomes based on the student populations that they serve. So we have some systems in place, but it's not enough. And this basic system that we have of funding schools based on local property taxes is leading to this inequity. I mean, I would argue that this is what it looks like to have systemic racism in school funding. It's not an accident that schools are funded by local property taxes, and it's not an accident the way that school district boundaries are drawn. So we need policies to actually counter that in order to have more equitable futures.
Yeah, yeah. What's the better scheme then? Is it like just not relying on property taxes at all? I would think, you know, it's just like, okay, hey, listen, like all those taxes, all that revenue should just go to like one source, that being the state, and the state just essentially distributes that funding in an equal manner to all school districts. Is that kind of like the ideal public education funding model there?
Yeah, if you want to break it wide open, we shouldn't be talking about education funding as being tied to a local property tax base. It just flips it from the type of equitable situation that we need. And so we should be looking at pulling this money at the state level and redistributing it, and we should be looking at federal funding the same way. As a political matter, I think the changes that we're likely to see are going to be stepping stones toward that. We should see state funding systems that are doing a better job of distributing funds more equitably. We need to see a bigger role for federal funding. Federal funding for schools right now is small. It's about 10% of education funding. If we want to address this big $150 billion education gap, that's not something that states can do on their own. We need to see a big increase in what our federal education spending looks like. And then we need to see that distributed to states and districts in a way that's proportional to the needs of those districts.
Yeah. I mean, I could basically see the federal funding steps in to close the funding gap. So, for example, the state, like a state like Pennsylvania, for example, or New Jersey or Delaware, like all the education funding is centered in the state capital, and they distribute it equally. But then, the state of Pennsylvania notices, oh, you know what, we've got a $3 billion funding gap here. Oh, and then, okay, well, then the federal government says, that's okay, we got you covered. Here's $3 billion to close that funding gap. So it may vary state to state, but it's according to their need. It's according to, okay, you've displayed that you have X amount of millions or billions of dollars in funding gap. We here as the federal government are here to step in, cut you a check. I would think that that's kind of the ideal situation there, that's how that would all play out.
That's right. And a smart policy like that would also be designed with some protections around state effort in funding. So you design a program in a way to make sure that, to get the federal funding, we're also making sure that states are putting up their fair share. And that's one of the things that we see in the funding inequity right now is there are some states like North Carolina that are spending very little as a percentage of their state GDP on education, and that's part of why their schools are very underfunded and not meeting the targets that they need to meet. There are other states like Mississippi that are actually spending a decent percentage of their GDP, but the wealth in the state overall is just so low that they don't have enough resources to make this happen. So the role of the federal funding would be, to help fill those gaps and to help motivate some states like North Carolina that need to be doing more with their own state funding too.
Right. How do we make the business case here, Haley, for those communities that may not want to let go of that old property tax regime, an affluent or suburban, relatively middle class, say white community or mostly white community that says, hey, you know what, well, we kind of like this the way it is because this is providing us all the funding we need. Now you're talking about taking, they might view it as, or the impression might be, you're talking about taking away from us so that we might provide for other people who don't live in our neighborhoods. They might be our county neighbors or our jurisdictional neighbors, but we don't care about them at the end of the day. We care about our own kids. So, but how do we kind of make the sale here? What's the pitch for those communities that, hey, you know what, in the end, this works out better for you too. This works out better for your kids. This works out for the future of your communities.
Yeah, it's a tough political sale. And in fact, if you want to see what this looks like at a micro level, there are actually examples of school districts where a wealthy part of that school district has even decided to secede and create their own school district because they don't want to share their local property taxes with the other schools in that district. Yeah. So it's a very real political pressure. I think now more than ever, hopefully people are starting to realize how important schools are, not just for the future of your individual child, your student, but for our functioning as a society. We're talking about raising the next generation of Americans who are going to be in the workforce, who are going to shape the future of what our social fiber looks like. We're talking about schools serving so many additional needs for families in terms of access for students to food, making sure there are social services. Schools are also an important part of how parents are actually able to go to work and have childcare. And so even if you're thinking about, just funding for your schools, your students, is your community really going to be healthy if, cross the school district border and families over there aren't getting what their kids need in order to ensure that they're going to be a healthy workforce when they graduate and that parents have the supports they need to go back to work now? I feel like in some ways the pandemic is showing us how we're connected, and we can't reopen until all of these webs of connections are fixed. And similar when I think we have to think about how education really needs to be a public good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has to be, education has to be a public good. I think, refining and zooming in on that business case a lot more, I think that, even those neighboring, for example, suburban majority white districts, where they enjoy that luxury because they've got like a more affluent tax base, they have to understand that there are like enormous social costs, social and economic costs from damaged or dysfunctional neighboring dysfunctional school systems. That becomes a social cost that's already adding up for your jurisdiction or for your district, right? I mean, that's the other thing about this too, is that, yeah, you're absolutely right. Schools are not just important for your kid. It's important for all of us in terms of functioning better as a society. But this is also, okay, well, if you don't want to be too altruistic there, okay, well, that's fine. Well, let me tell you how much money it's going to cost you in terms of taxes, in terms of your government, your county or township or small city government, because you don't want to partake in an equitable funding system. Okay, well, you know what? Your whole region is losing from that. Like, you're losing money from all these dysfunctional school systems and these underfunded students all in close proximity to you. It's a recipe for just complete social breakdown because of accumulating social and economic costs, whether that's from just a higher rate of unemployment to higher crime, for example. All of that just doesn't work out well for anyone at all.
That's right. And there are hidden costs of education when you have underfunded schools, and the result is you have students graduating who need more from a public safety net. You can pay for it now, or you end up paying for it later. I mean, there's even a good example in North Carolina. The Chamber of Commerce got involved when there was a push among wealthy parents in the district in Wake County, North Carolina, who said, we don't want to have our schools in this system where we're integrating across the district. We just want neighborhood schools that kind of keep students in their own neighborhoods and keep wealthy students together in these areas. And the Chamber of Commerce realized that was not good for business in that district. It was not good for attracting people to the area in terms of being able to say, live anywhere in our district and you're going to get access to a good school. It wasn't a good look for the district in terms of being really clear about some forces towards segregation. And so you wouldn't necessarily think of a Chamber of Commerce as the one that's going to sort of step up and say, no, we actually need a more equitable system of how we're deciding who gets to go to what school. But they did, because they realized that those two things are connected, and they could connect the dots in terms of what that was going to mean for who they could attract to the district and who's graduating from the district ready to work in all of these companies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. We're talking with Haley Potter. Haley Potter is a senior fellow at the Century Foundation. Go to tcf.org for more information. Check out this latest series, this report that she put together, an essential report entitled Closing America's Education Funding Gaps. Go to tcf.org for more information. It's a report that she and her colleagues put together, giving some great insights into the scale, the level of current, giving us some lessons on where it needs to be. Great conversation here with Haley, and really appreciate her on here. Go to also at Haley TCF on social media, on Twitter, for more there where she's engaged. Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Charles.
All right. Take care, Haley. All right. Let's take a break, and when we come back on the other side, we'll be talking with Ben Smilowitz, who's the founder and executive director of the Disaster Accountability Project. And we're talking about resources for first responders and emergency preparedness. That's going to be coming up next, especially at a time like this, pandemic. And now we got like hurricanes and tropical storms moving their way up the East Coast. And we haven't even reached the official real start of the hurricane season yet. So we're not even in the peak season yet here as we're watching Isaias unfold across the East Coast. But anyway, Ben Smilowitz coming on to talk about that and other issues here on Reality Check. 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, Word TV, Word app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Seniors, does your doctor regularly reach out to check on you? Can you walk into your doctor's office and see them if you need to? Do you have your doctor's cell phone number and can you call them anytime, day or night? At Dedicated Senior Medical Center, their only specialty is caring for seniors. Dedicated makes it easy to get the primary care you deserve. Doctors spend more time with patients than the doctors you may be used to. They offer telehealth visits, help you get your medications, and even make sure you get to your appointments. If your doctor isn't treating you like family, it's time to say yes to Dedicated Senior Medical Center. Call Dedicated Senior Medical Center today to schedule a visit and find out what you're missing. Call 267-443-1900. That's 267-443-1900. Appointments are available now.
No fear, just facts. This is WURD, independent black media.
This message is from the Philadelphia Department of Public Health. COVID-19 is still a threat in our communities, but we can all do something simple to help stop the spread. It's critically important to wear a mask or face covering whenever you're in public or around others. Yes, even while social distancing. Wearing a mask shows you care for yourself and your community and is essential to slowing the spread of COVID-19. So love yourself, love your neighbors, wear a mask.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and WordRadio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. Phone lines are open as we wait on our next guest. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Got a lot of comments on our Facebook live stream. For example, we've got Lois Ruben Marks. Thanks for tuning in as well. Appreciate you. Good afternoon. Yesterday I received a bogus text indicating that I was not registered to vote, and they provided a link which I did not click. So beware, I vote absentee. So yes, do beware of strange text. If you don't know where that text is coming from, do not click on it. Don't click on it if you're getting a text with a link, but you're getting a text from a source that you do not recognize, that you did not authorize. Don't click into it. So that's just some basic digital hygiene. So definitely, I appreciate you, Lois, for that alert, for that warning. So other folks just ignore those texts. Don't know, because it could be like a phishing attempt. So if somebody trying to hack you, hack your phone. And there's a lot of that going around today. Raphael Suleiman, Biden needs to, who's on Facebook Live too, who's saying Biden needs to pick Elizabeth Warren as his VP. It is time for an upper-class white woman to be the vice president. Ambitious black women in politics need to concentrate on building the black man and the community. If you step on the world stage as a black woman, you will be judged by the positioning of your race in American society. Hopefully Warren will be able to translate her VP spot into a POTUS position. So first, well, thanks for that commentary, Raphael. One, be a lot of sisters out there who I know right now would not agree with you and would be understandably fumed about that statement. Two, I don't think he's going to pick Warren. I don't think he should pick Elizabeth Warren. You're giving up a Senate seat when you do that. And if it's one thing that Democrats need right now, more than the presidency, you can argue it's the Senate. And you don't need to be losing any Senate seats right now, because the Senate game is up for grabs at this point. And Massachusetts has, well, there's two reasons why you shouldn't pick Elizabeth Warren. I mean, she's very smart, very, very capable, very credible, but she needs to remain in the Senate. One, Elizabeth Warren couldn't even win her own state, couldn't even win Massachusetts when she was running for president. She came in third place in the primary. One of the least things that you should expect, or you should be able to do when you're running for president, is win your own state. If you can't win your own state, especially during a primary, you've got issues as a candidate. So people are talking about Elizabeth Warren all they want. Her own state didn't even, she came in third place in her own state that she represents of Massachusetts. That says a lot about her effectiveness in that state. Also, too, she's one of the 10 least popular senators in the United States, according to Morning Consult. 3, you're giving up a Senate seat. And Biden is keeping all this in mind, and his team. You're giving up, because the current governor of Massachusetts is Charlie Baker. He's a Republican. He will pick a Republican to fill that seat, despite the moment we are in. That's just, what Republicans are going to do, what Republicans do. I mean, that's just how they do. Democrats are the ones saying, oh, maybe I should kind of look over to the other side and, and we should get into this moment of comedy and, political kumbaya. Republicans are like, I'm picking one of my people. We got that seat. That's because they like this politics is a game of addition, not subtraction. And you're going to be playing a game of subtraction if you pick Elizabeth Warren as your running mate. That would be a very devastating strategic mistake on the part of Biden's camp if they do pick Warren. And I get a feeling they're not going to pick Warren anyway. So that's just kind of the assessment on that. But Raphael, I appreciate you stepping in with that assessment and analysis. Let me go to Pat out of West Philly, who's calling in for a reality check. Pat?
How are you?
How are you doing?
I just got some information about the census. I'm actually a volunteer for the census, and I understand that the deadline now has been changed from October to September. I actually followed Stacey Abrams on her tweeting page, and she also has a comment about it being changed. I did call my office to talk about it, and they're saying that there's a House bill out there that they're trying to pass so that this does not happen. So I don't know if it's already in effect, the deadline itself, or it's something that, that's being put in place to hold us back again from, counting. So I would love to have somebody come on and talk about the historical facts of the census and how it affects us, as a community. I don't know if you want to look that up, but I'm just finding out. And on the census, I'm a volunteer, and I didn't even know about it. I was just following her tweets, and I saw it, and I said, well, let me call and find out what's going on. And they did tell me that the deadline had been changed from October to September.
Yeah, and there's some conflicting. I've been seeing that throughout the morning because it was reported that the Census Bureau was moving up the deadline from October 31st to September 30th. So September 30th. But then there was another report, another news alert going out saying that the self-response deadline has been extended through October 31st. So I don't know what that means. I don't know. It seems like there's some kind of distinction being made there between self-response and completing the census. You know what I'm saying? So I'm seeing two different kinds of, and when we go to My 2020, and thanks for that too, Pat, go to My 2020 census.gov, and there's nothing about, I'm looking on there now to see, because I hadn't checked this morning. But yeah, that's what I was hearing the same thing. That was the news that kind of went out over the wire. Keep us, you're right. We're gonna get someone on soon, a few people on soon to talk about the census, and we've got a big conversation that's coming up. I've been moderating a series of conversations in partnership with WITF Public Media out there in Harrisburg, and they called on me to moderate these series of transforming racial justice conversations. And the next conversation is coming up next Thursday at 7 p.m. That'll be live on their YouTube channel. Will be about the census. We're going to be talking about the census, so we're going to have some experts on there as well. So just stay tuned in. I'll announce that, and go to WITF.org. That's our partner, WITF Public Media. It's the NPR affiliate PBS station out there in Harrisburg and Central PA. And so I've been moderating. There've been some great and useful discussions. We are scheduled to talk about the census next Thursday at 7 p.m. And so hopefully that'll be useful, Pat. Thanks for your work on that too, Pat. I appreciate that frontline work on the census. Keep that up. I really appreciate that. Joining us now is our next guest, Ben Smilowitz. He's the founder, executive director of the Disaster Accountability Project. Go to smartresponse.org for more information. We're here to talk about COVID response, COVID relief efforts from the federal government, what that should look like. He's joining us now here on Reality Check. Ben, how?
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Ben? Hey,
nice
thanks so much. No, I really appreciate you. What is the Disaster Accountability Project about? What's that?
Yeah, so it's an organization that I started after Hurricane Katrina to improve disaster relief and humanitarian aid. I spent time in Mississippi with actually volunteering with the American Red Cross, managing sites in Gulfport and Biloxi, and I was just shocked by the failure on all sides to respond and recognize there was no organization monitoring the organizations responsible and the agencies responsible for disaster response. And so we advocate for solutions. We try to make sure that lessons learned are implemented so that we don't make the same mistakes over and over.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? So much of the public discourse on emergency preparedness and response when disasters hits centers around the role of an agency like FEMA. You know, the assumption is that, okay, well, disaster strikes, we have that agency. We have that infrastructure in place. That's FEMA. FEMA takes care of that. But that's not the complete picture of national or federal emergency response, is it? Like that failure that you just described that you saw, especially during Hurricane Katrina, what did that failure look like? And explain how it's not all FEMA. Other things need to happen here.
Yeah, well, state and local governments have tremendous responsibility, but for massive disasters like COVID and a Katrina-type situation, FEMA does have significant responsibilities, as do other federal agencies. And, a failure of leadership or a failure of initiative, or just people just flat out not caring, maybe about the populations impacted the hardest, can lead to catastrophe, because you need these agencies to do their jobs. And you need organizations, citizens groups, and others to be calling on these agencies and holding them accountable in real time, and also making sure that the policies are right, which is what we're trying to do now, with saying, if the federal government's going to fail the people in this country, then what options do we have for states to get more resources and opportunities to help? And that's where we are right now. I don't expect a whole lot from this administration, and I don't think we should, considering what we've been through and what they're doing. So the question is, what else do we have? What other tools can we leverage to save lives and get supplies to those that need it right now? And that's where we're coming from. But the states have had tremendous responsibilities after disasters, and some states do better than others. But we got to push on all fronts.
Yeah. I think that this is a needed discussion. It's a fascinating discussion because Americans, we respond to a lot of disasters and a lot of emergencies, but we're not a very how to put this, emergency preparedness culture, right? We know we respond, we know how to get activated in reaction to an emergency or a disaster. We're not very good at preparing for them, right? So you talk about this in a recent op-ed, the State Emergency Production Act of 2020. It's this bipartisan solution, as you call it, that would offer states more resources, the production of more equipment like PPEs, personal protective gear, and also more control in a situation like that. Explain what the State Emergency Production Act is.
Well, we've been calling on this administration to leverage the Defense Production Act, since March, even a little earlier. And that could really increase national supply, because it basically allows the federal government to tell businesses to turn it up. And essentially it allows the federal government to support businesses to turn up production and also prioritize contracts. So instead of all these goods going through private supply chains where the prices ultimately increase, goods can go directly to the government, and the government can distribute. Now, because the federal government's not been doing that, we have to figure out how else we can get increased supplies, and that's this proposal. This basically allows states to do that production in their states. So right now, states can't do that because of the Constitution and interstate commerce, and this proposal basically delegates the federal authority to let states do it, and also prioritize contracts in their states. So instead of states having to compete with all the private sector and all these supply chains that ultimately jack prices, we want states to be able to get goods on priority and from production basically at the prices that they should be. That saves taxpayer dollars, that gets PPE into the hands of first responders and nursing homes and frontline workers, and the people who have been, most adversely affected by this. I mean, even in Pennsylvania, the communities of color comprise 11% of the population, but 21% of the deaths and 28% of the cases. And and that means that PPE and these critical supplies are not getting to where they need to be, and nursing home deaths are over 2/3, of the deaths in Pennsylvania. So, and that's a PPE issue. So, goods are costing 5 to 10 times what they should be, and if the federal government's not going to do it, then the least they could do, Congress, Senator Toomey, and the members of the delegation can essentially allow the states to do what the federal government should be doing. And we know that states have been leading through this crisis. Many states have been leading through this crisis. And even if just 3 dozen states were to turn up production and prioritize goods in their state, we would have a much greater national supply of these goods, and prices would go down and lives would get saved. So, this is a move for COVID, but it's also a move for future disasters, because states do have tremendous responsibilities. We have to figure out ways to get supplies where they're needed to save lives, and we got to try all available options, because we can't just wait for one actor to do its job. We need everyone to be working hard.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that. Talk about that that piece, and I'm glad you pointed that out, about how especially in these high disaster zone areas, like Gulf Coast states, or like how we're looking at Hurricane Isaias along the East Coast. A lot of these states have populations where there's a high proportion of Black and brown populations, also low-income populations that can't absorb that kind of stress or that kind of disaster, can't absorb it, especially like financially or the response to it. How do we make disaster response much more culturally competent, right? Like, how do we also ensure that Black, brown people are like inside those planning rooms, those emergency preparedness, emergency response planning rooms, and making sure that those responses for those populations that are uniquely situated, don't have the kind of resources to absorb an impact like that? How do we make sure that response for those communities is adequate enough?
Yeah, no, you raised a really important issue, and there is some progress, but it's not happening fast enough, and there needs to be more. There's a fellowship program called the Bill Anderson Fellows, and it's named after an amazing man. And the fellowship program is an effort to bring more people of color into emergency management. And they're doing an amazing job. They could use a lot more support. I think they're partnered with University of Delaware right now.
I didn't know that. Okay, I didn't realize that.
And so Norma Anderson is the founder. She's here in Maryland, where I am. And it's just an incredible fellowship program. And we need more things like that. And they need to double their class size and achieve as much as possible for increasing the number of people of color in emergency management, because essentially emergency managers are like community organizers, or at least they should be. They need to impress on the populations that they serve the importance of preparedness, because the more a community prepares, the better it'll do after an event. And there are tough issues we need to deal with. I mean, people live in flood zones, right? And they rebuild in flood zones, and when waters rise, they have to figure out how to get out. And we need comprehensive planning, and we need community leadership, and it's really at all levels. I mean, local communities feel like they need to increase their property tax base, and they allow developments in very risky areas, and then people fall into these traps where they end up buying or renting properties that are flood vulnerable, and maybe they don't have a car, or they don't have good transportation, and services in the community aren't that great. And then when there's a flood, people are stuck. So, the definition of disabled, access and functional need, could include not having a car. If you don't have a car and there's a flood, you're in a lot of trouble. So So having good emergency managers that think through these issues is critical. The fellowship, like the Bill Anderson Fellowship Program, is doing that. And again, programs like that need as much support as they can get.
Well, I didn't know about them, so we had to reach out to them as well. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Bill Anderson Fund. I see that it is at the University of Delaware, baf.udel.edu. The Disaster Accountability Project is at disasteraccountability.org, disasteraccountability.org. We've been talking with its founder, executive director, Ben Smilowitz, who's been joining us here on Reality Check and recently wrote an op-ed in the Mississippi Clarion Ledger about the need for a bipartisan solution called the State Emergency Production Act. We've been talking with him about emergency response preparedness here on Reality Check. Yeah, I'll bring you back, Ben. I actually ran on time here, but thanks so much for this. Really appreciate it. We'll be in touch.
Thanks so much.
All right, take care. Let's take a break, and when we come back, phone lines are open, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back.
RG Electrical Inspections provides electrical inspections for realtors, licensed electricians, and homeowners. RG is a certified plans examiner and licensed underwriter providing assistance for PICO outages. RG is also listed on PICO's website. RG Electrical Inspections is a licensed and insured underwriter serving Philadelphia and surrounding areas. Call if you have plans to review today, 267-902-1655.
Want the latest in Word swag? Check out the shop tab on WordRadio.com. Hoodies, tees, and more in a variety of colors. The shop tab on WordRadio.com. Show the world that you're all about black. Talk Media. Keystone First VIP Choice HMO SNP Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan has a 4 out of 5 star rating and is one of the highest rated Medicare plans in the region. Keystone First VIP Choice and you are better together. If you live in Philadelphia, Bucks, Chester, Montgomery, or Delaware County, and you have both Medicare and Medicaid, choose the Medicare plan that is working to help you get better care. Enjoy extra benefits at no cost to you with Keystone First VIP Choice. You get benefits like dental, vision, and transportation to and from your medical appointments. They also cover a fitness membership to a gym of your choice. $150 toward over-the-counter pharmacy items. There's no copay for doctor's visits. They offer a large provider network, a great prescription plan, dental coverage, and even eyeglasses. Plus, you don't have to wait for open enrollment. You can change your coverage every quarter. Keystone First VIP Choice. The name you trust, the service you deserve. Call Keystone First VIP Choice today at 1-877-686-1760 or visit KeystoneFirstVIPChoice.com. Be heard. Want another way to join the conversation? Follow us on social media using the hashtag onWURD. Be heard. Stay connected to Word Radio. Independent Black Media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and WordRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. Phone lines are open until we hit the, I think it's The Source will be coming up next. Yes, The Source in the 1 p.m. hour coming up next here on WURD, 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. There's still a flash flood warning in effect in southeastern PA. It'll be active for the next hour, according to the National Weather Service. So flash flood warning for surrounding areas, including Philadelphia County, Camden, northeastern Gloucester, and Burlington County, southeastern Bucks, Chester County, Delaware County. That's what I'm reading right now. So, and that's until 2:15 p.m. That's when the flash flood warning goes out of effect, as far as we know. So, so we just have to kind of keep a close eye on that. 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Phone lines are open. Let me go to Facebook. I'm sorry, I'm like kind of hurriedly multitasking here while we're reaching towards the end of our Tuesday edition of Reality Check. Virginia Hanfo on Facebook Live is asking what I don't understand, white and black, is why we're paying the same taxes. Why, when it comes to funding schools, the amount is different. So we're paying the same taxes, but then the funding of the school amount is different. When we look at these so-called rich areas, they don't want to pay taxes and put all their want for not paying their taxes. And when it comes to funding for schools, now they want value for their money come to play. So I think I got it correct here too. I think Virginia was definitely listening to our conversation earlier, and so was just wanting to get that point across. But it's a good point. I mean, it's white. You have basically we're all supposed to be paying the same amount of taxes, but there's definitely more issues. You have a more affluent area that just has the ability, just by virtue of just more wealth in there generated in their households and more home ownership. So they're paying more taxes, as far as maybe low income communities where there's a lower amount of home ownership, so less property taxes because there's fewer people owning homes. So they have a higher ratio of people who are renting. So that's kind of how some of that works out, because this formula is based on property taxes. It's based on high rates of home ownership. So you have fewer people in an area owning homes, then you're going to have fewer dollars coming from property tax dollars, going into those school districts, because that's how the funding formula works out. So it's a good question, but I understand where you're coming from. But that's what's going on right now. Christy Graham out of Manteca, California, is listening and fan watching from Manteca, California. Thank you, Christy. Appreciate you. All right, can you keep watching? So, and hopefully God willing, we'll be on tomorrow. And Lois Ruben Marks, just saying, just vote. Yeah, please just vote. We're making this conversation more complicated than it needs to be, which is just so frustrating. It's just people get out and vote. Let's just stop spinning our wheels here about folks out here who are talking about should we vote? I don't know about voting. Just cut that out. It's not. I'm laughing, but it's not funny. It's not cute. You think you're sounding smart, and you're actually coming off kind of stupid, and you're actually, once again, you're completely fulfilling the needs. You are doing the legwork of the white supremacists. So, these are some of the same people rail all day about white supremacists and how Trump is the most white supremacist thing going, and then you out there telling people about they should hold their vote or not vote. That makes no sense. You just, people are looking at you and they're they may not be telling you, but you're one, you're coming off really stupid, and two, you're coming off really white supremacist. And so just cut it out. Just get your head together, get registered, and vote, and encourage other people to vote. It's a very simple thing to do. We don't have we didn't have these difficult conversations over a couple of years ago when Black Panther came out. People weren't having, should I go see Black Panther or not? No, y'all stood in line in some cases, for an hour or two to buy them tickets to go see Black Panther and to put money in the pocket of a dude who put millions of dollars in campaign contributions into the pocket of Donald Trump and his run for presidency back in 2016. Y'all have a problem with that. So it's why are we having a problem with an activity that, you might have to stand in line for it come election day, but you don't have to pay anything. And it works out eventually for you. It comes back to you, and it comes back to your community. It doesn't go in somebody else's pocket so they can take that money and put it in the pocket of your enemy. You know what I'm saying? You think about how stupid y'all sound at the few of y'all out there who are talking about this hold your vote, no vote thing. It's absolutely insane. And so I can tell you now that this program, I know WRD is pretty much the stakes are high. So we're not entertaining that conversation. You're not going to be seeing me bringing any experts or guests on here talking about let's hold the vote. That's just not happening. It's not happening. Not on this watch. Sorry. Let me go to Lola out of Jenkintown, who's going in for a reality check. Lola, what's good?
Yes. Hi, Charles. How are you?
How you doing?
Good. I wanted to just bring up about the voting, and I'm just kind of piggybacking on what you're saying, but I feel like we are, and you've said, and a lot of people have said, we're in a voting life and death type of strategy right now, and I don't see the fever out here from the politicians and anything. I know when people are running for re-elections or anything, you are bombarded with pamphlets and all kind of stuff in your mail. I haven't received really anything about voting. Not that I have to, but I'm saying, what about all the other people, in Philly or anywhere? I know people, they say they haven't received anything in the mail saying this is what you should do, this is where you should go if you want to mail in. A lot of people aren't sure about the mail-in votes and don't feel really confident about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that all the polls should be open. And since everybody, if you go out in the world, if you go in the supermarkets, if you go anywhere, Charles, and you have to, think about it, you see people out doing what they want to do. People come out to do what they want to do. So open all the polls, have a couple hours in the morning time for the elder people. So how they have shopping at CVS, you can't go in now from 9 to 10:30 because it's only for the elderly people. So have the polls open from whatever time they open at 7 to maybe 11, or 7 to 12 or something for the older people, and then have, let everybody else come in after that. Make sure it's clean, get the young people out, because I do not believe in November that when we come down to this mail-in voting, we are going to lose because we are not up on the ball. We have to give people options. You just can't say you're going to just mail and vote and have 100 or 200 polling locations open. That's not going to happen. You have people who don't even have bank accounts because they don't believe in banks. You understand what I'm saying? So therefore, those type of people are going to say, no, I want to push the ballot because I don't believe that when I mail it in, it's going to get there on time. They're going to have all these conspiracy theories. So they'd rather go at the polls. So we need to figure a way out to get these polling stations open for November, and we need to start doing it now.
Yeah, I agree with that, Lola. I appreciate you on saying that. I think it's a bunch of different options on the table. So, you're going to have to maximize as much options. There's going to be their issues, their challenges that we're seeing with vote by mail. It is there. But that's a function, that's an option for those who are worried about their health. That's something you got to exercise as early as possible. And so also we need to talk about, and we'll have this conversation next week, expanding those polling locations, drop-off locations for ballots, and people need to get mobilized around that. And then not thinking about maybe, saying about, hey, can we do, opening up the polling precincts, not just for one day, but spread out over several days to make sure everyone has that option, exercise, and available. And then we go to George out of Center City, who's calling in for a reality check. George, what's good?
Things good. Everything.
Hey, what's happening?
Charles.
All right.
Good.
Okay.
Listen, I agree with the lady. You have to open these polls, and I'm quite sure that the governor is going to say these polls have to be open if we have to go ahead and put whatever to prevent the 19, the virus or whatever. But they're going to open those. You got to have polls open because the voting thing, mail-in. Trump's showing you already what he's going to do. He may not even, they might put mail one day on, Monday off, so the mail get all backed up. Let everybody, all the mail carriers go home early, deliver them on Sunday. He's going to come up with something. But the main thing to watch out for is Joe Biden's vice president. If he picked Pamela Harris, Trump's get back in. Black folks is not going to vote for her. Just not going to do it. It's too many instances in California that she proved that she will do anything to prove that she is one of the establishment. Let me put it like that there. Now, do Rice, everybody else I think will make out good. Rice, what's her name, Abrams, those are the only two I would pick out of that. Other than, what's her name, the woman, the teacher, can't even think of her name right now. I don't know, Minnesota, whatever.
Who's that? Amy Klobuchar? The senator?
No.
Elizabeth Warren out of
Massachusetts? Elizabeth Warren. I mean, those are the only three that I would pick, to be with him, that it wouldn't bring a problem.
Who's that? Name those three again. Elizabeth Warren. Who are the other two?
And Rice.
Okay.
And Stacey Abrams.
Stacey Abrams, okay.
That there. And one other thing, Charles, I wanted to thank you for the sanitation workers. They all appreciate all you've done to try to make it better for them. Everybody else was dogging them out. We want our trash picked up until they find out that over 200 trash sanitation workers had passed because of the virus, and maybe another 100 and something of them. But that was the kind of stuff that your managing director kept away from you. But thank God for you in this show that they were exposed. And when they was exposed for what and who they were, that's the way you got to do things. You can't sit up there and kiss up to these elected officials and all these people in these type of positions. You have to call them out. But then again, when you're trying to get a grant or you're trying to get along, go along to get along, you want to be in the room or you want to sit down and get your head rubbed like, good guy. Hey, man, we like you. Then you're subject to sell the community down the drain. And I want to say you're not one of those type. You're a very decent person, and you just put the facts.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a movement moment. And I appreciate that, George, because it's a movement moment as far as sanitation workers. I mean, what's happening in Philadelphia, what's unfolding for the sanitation workers is like the Memphis sanitation workers back in 1968.
That's exactly
which is
right.
That is that moment that's happening with Philadelphia. And Philadelphia sanitation workers, actually, I'm finding out, I'm talking to other people in the country, the other sanitation worker unions and people who are active around this issue, they're looking at Philly. They're following Philly sanitation workers lead. So they're saying that there's a movement there. And people need to make sure. I mean, now, nationwide, on average, sanitation workers are picking up 40% more trash than they did before the pandemic. So there's a lot more. Already got a lot more. Oh, yeah, go ahead, real quick.
Real quick. The reason is that we used to have trash pickup twice a week, right?
Right.
When John Street got in there, with so much abandonment and tearing down everything, he turned it into 1 day a week. Now, with all this here new building and development, the only thing they have to do now is to go back to 2 days a week, picking up trash twice a week, and you're being caught up on it. But if you go through the neighborhoods now, all you see is trash piled up. People are not going to keep that trash in their house. They just put it out. And what it do, animals go through it and get all trashed up. But that's something else, Charles, that you'll work on, talk about, and guarantee the city will clean it right up. Have a good one.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Yeah, you do the same. Thanks so much, George. Yeah, I mean, and I think there's a big moment here, too, to really seriously redefine sanitation or waste management. I mean, waste management is one of like the big green jobs of the future, and the city's already made plans to hire temporary sanitation workers to try to help bolster those efforts to pick up trash and to scale up. So there's a big moment, especially through pandemic and high unemployment times and some budgets to find, like, especially brothers out there who need those kinds of jobs and start redefining what we think waste management is. People tend to look down on waste management. Waste management is one of the more important functions in society, so we need to treat it as such. And so I'm happy to see that, like in Philly, where that there's a change in mindset and people having a realization that this is an important function and you need to treat your sanitation workers better. I am so late. We got to go into The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders. That's coming up next here on WURD. Philly wants you to stay sharp, stay smart, and more importantly, stay safe out there. We'll talk with you tomorrow. Take care.